Hey everybody, how's it going? We're running a little behind today. We'll explain why a little later, but just hang tight with us. The Joravsky show is just moments away. In the meantime, I will play music from our friends, the Curls. We're looking for new music, by the way. If you know of anybody, if you're in a local band, if you're listening to this and you're in a local band, reach out to us. We'll play your music and plug whatever you want. All right, let's see here. Play some music. Hang tight with us, everybody. The Joravsky show will start in minutes. All right, everybody, I think we're ready. How's it going? That was the Curls, by the way. Love the Curls. Ben's going to their concert next month. Isn't that right, Ben?
Yes, sir.
I can just imagine you at a modern-day concert. Good times. All right, sorry for the delay, everybody. We're ready to roll here. Turns out Fran Spielman Show was recording an episode, and they needed to use the studio. Ran a little over. She had a special guest on, Ben.
Oh, really? Bernie Sanders?
No. Well, in our dreams. Former Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel was.
Oh. Did he bring Chris Christie? He left Chris Christie at home?
Well, he was in the bathroom the entire time.
I'm Chris Christie.
All right, everybody, how's it going? Let's get this going here. Your Ben Joravsky Show for Friday, February 28th. It's just moments away. But before we do this, we got to thank the following unions for sponsoring this program. The International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local 126 and District 8. The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9. The International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150. And, of course, today's Ben Joravsky Show for Friday, February 28th is brought to you by our good friends at the Chicago Federation of Labor. Benny J, hit us with that song of the day.
Well,
pal.
you know, it just popped in my mind because I saw Bob walking down the hall. He goes, "How you doing today, Bandana Bob?"
Bandana Bob.
And I go, "How can I complain? I'm living in the USA." And he goes, "Steve Miller." I go, "My man, he knows his 70s music." So here we go, D. This is for you and all the downstate people in Alton who love Steve Miller. Do, 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 do. Living in the USA. Cheeseburgers.
Cheeseburgers? What was that?
There's a line in the song that says cheeseburgers. Trust me.
Good times. All right. I'm kind of trying to get this out of there's music going on there.
Oh, I don't have my headphones on.
Yeah.
Come on, Ben. Get your game.
Good Lord.
Let's get those headphones on.
My goodness, please.
Oh, yeah. These are headphones are all.
Live stream chat, weigh in. How's it going? All right. Your Ben Joravsky show with new intro music starts now. It is Friday, February 28th, and live from the Chicago Sun-Times Chicago Reader Studio on Racine Avenue, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. Today on the program, it's another Rummana Rundown with Sun-Times editor Rummana Hussain, and it's the Ben Joravsky Show debut of Monica Gordon and Zach Koutsky. And now your host, the meanest air piano player on the planet, Chicago Reader columnist Ben Joravsky.
Hello, everybody. Ben Joravsky here. We're calling this Give the Devil His Due Friday. And here's why. May Ron was in the studio. No, not that devil. Talking about a different devil, okay? Although we may do some Rom clips a little while later, don't you think, D? Can we resist doing Rom clips as Rom articulates his view of where the Democratic Party should go?
Take a chill pill, man.
Oh, okay. Okay. Hold on, Rom. Let me take that chill pill. D, have I ever told you how much I love the water here at the Chicago Sun-Times? It is delicious.
Every day, in fact.
Anyway, the devil whose due I am giving is one President Trump. That's Donald John Trump. Yes, yes, yes. You know, folks, he's sort of right. I mean, he sort of kind of maybe has a little bit of a kernel of truth, or makes a pretty almost accurate point regarding the coronavirus. Not that he's handled this medical crisis well. God knows he's done a wretched job as the president, part of being the president. And that's the part where, as the symbolic leader of the United States of America, you bring all the people of the country, those people who live in states that voted for you, those people who lived in states that didn't vote for you, those people who support you, those people who don't support you, you bring them all together and show them that you're their leader and that you understand the common interests they all have. Nope, that is not Donald Trump style. He's more of the tribal warfare kind of guy, and he won by losing the popular vote, thanks to our electoral college system. His strategists tell him he could lose the popular vote even more this time and still win, maybe even win a few more states. So he's got no particular reason, politically speaking, to change his style. All right, let's get to specifics. We got a scary outbreak of the coronavirus, an illness that we know very little about, relatively little about. It's causing massive quarantines in China to contain the virus. As a result, the stock market has fallen. That's just the basics that you need to know that we all know from hearing the news, okay? So the stock market has declined. Trump's reaction? Blame everything on Democrats and the news media for the falling markets. His point is that the Democrats see the declining stock market as an opportunity to undercut his reelection bid by claiming that the economy isn't as strong as he says it is. Now, here's where there's a kernel of truth to all this. The fact is, the economy has been Donald Trump's strong suit. I know. In Lefty Land on the Ben Joravsky Show, we're critical of how he's handled the economy, and we point out the inequities of it. We point out that not all people have benefited the same amount, but the reality is, in the world that exists outside the bubble of Lefty Land, that's considered Donald Trump's strong suit. And the reality is, in the world outside the bubble known as lefty land, if the stock market declines, that could bode well for a Democratic candidate who says Donald Trump's not being the master of the economy that Donald Trump is claiming himself to be. God help any voter that believes anything that Donald Trump says. So there is a kernel of truth to this. I can bet you right now that there are Democratic strategists from each and every camp of candidates running in the Democratic primary who are watching this declining stock market in the hopes that it could help their candidate if their candidate is the nominee. Guarantee you that, D. Now, here's the thing. They don't say it publicly. They keep it to themselves. They talk about it to themselves, or maybe off the record, famous off the record calls to reporters. Well, this could bode well for us. Don't tell anybody I told you this, but it's all the market. Or if they go on a TV show, like George Stephanopoulos Today, or whatever that show is on the weekends.
This week
yeah.
with George Stephanopoulos.
They'll talk. Critics say that a declining economy could help the Democrats. You dump it on some critic, but actually, so people are talking about that. But here's the thing. You're not supposed to say it publicly if you're the president of the United States. When you're the president of the United States, you're not just the president of the Republicans. You're the president for Democrats and Republicans, for blue and red, for all parts of the country, whether they voted for you or not. This president is the worst president of my lifetime. He's absolutely incapable of playing the symbolic role of president of the United States. But having said that, I must concede, the man has a point. We got a great show today, everybody. Bada boom, bada bing. Rummana Hussain is in it. She is all fired up, man. She's been waiting all week long. We've been waiting to have Rummana Hussain come in.
Bada boom, bada bing.
Where'd I get that?
I'm wondering the same thing.
Isn't that from The Sopranos? I'm looking at you.
Sure, it's from The Sopranos.
Bada boom, bada bing. Anyway, Rummana Hussain will be here. Cheeseburgers. Oh, that's Steve Miller Band. We'll be talking about Trump's visit to India, man. She's been waiting all week to weigh in on that and other issues of the day. Rummana Hussain. Monica Gordon will be here. She's running for State Senate in the 40th District, South Suburbs. Zach Koutsky will be here from the United Food and Commercial Workers.
Zach Attack.
I've been waiting to have Zach in for a long time. They're organizing cannabis workers, D. I don't call it reefer anymore. Got to call it cannabis, okay, D? Stop calling it reefer, all right? They're organizing reefer workers. Finally, this is great. If this is a coming industry, I say organize the workers. I welcome unions everywhere. I'm so happy, by the way, the Chicago Tribune. I'm in solidarity with all those journalists at the Chicago Tribune. They are really... it's like an existential crisis there with this new management team that they have in this hedge fund that's taking control of the Tribune. So I'm very pro-union, and so I say if the cannabis industry, not the reefer industry, is growing, let's make sure that the workers have a decent wage. So anyway, plenty of political talk, labor talk, union talk, all kinds of talk. But before we do any of that, the young man from Alton, the man they call the doctor, with the news.
Hey, everybody. Happy Friday. Not a doctor. All right. Let's go to the live stream chat real quick. Our good friend Benjamin weighed in. Bada Bing is the name of the strip club in The Sopranos.
That is correct. Thank you. I knew it was from the Sopranos. Bada Bing, the strip club. D, send that guy something. Got a pizza?
Yeah, I'm sending a pizza.
Send him a bagel. Send him one of Rom's books. Did Rom leave one of his books?
No, I didn't. No. Rom did not leave any of his books. Rom Emanuel was just in the studio with the Fran Spielman show.
Did he try to sell you one of his books?
No, I was waiting for it. Okay. I run the board for the Fran Spielman show. Yeah. It was awkward.
Yeah. No, it's not that bad.
All right, everybody. By the way, a lot of people on the live stream chat are wondering, so I'm assuming people downloading are wondering, what? New music coming, all right? Tuesday. That's my goal this weekend is to find some...
I like that song you played.
Good intro song. It's a little too chill for what we do around here, you know what I mean?
And I like it. Okay, all right. I leave that in your hands.
Yeah, leave it to me. I'll take care of that. All right, so everybody wondering, new music coming up Tuesday, all right? That copyright thing just kind of caught me off guard. And,
the lawyers came in.
I've been on the ropes since Thursday, all right?
Cease and desist right now. We had a lot of fun with that yesterday. By the way, anybody wants to send in some music that they're willing to allow us to play,
at
we welcome it.
BennyJShow@gmail.com. Send us whatever you got. And no, Benjamin, we're not sending you a pizza bagel. All right. For the fourth and final time this week, let's find out what's happening in Chicago and or Illinois. Columbus Day, out!
Oh.
But first, all right, we got to talk about our Illinois Governor, J.B. Pritzker, all right? Our Friday plans for the governor includes a visit to, where else? All together, everybody, the Thompson Center.
Okay. Is he signing something?
He's at the Thompson Center to discuss the state's response to the coronavirus. Then he'll be hanging in Rockford, Illinois, to talk capital projects for the area. Ben Joravsky, do any capital projects come to mind for the city of Rockford?
Yeah, they got to fix their infrastructure. Just in general, pave streets, fix bridges, viaducts, basics. Just the essentials of getting from point A to point B in Rockford. So yes, that's the basics. I say take care of the basics.
Oh, and we can't forget about Project Make Leticia Wallace mayor.
Our good friend Leticia Wallace is no longer the state rep, by the way, D. You know that, don't you?
I know.
Is she running for mayor? I'm always the last to know.
She's not. I'm just
saying. Made that up.
She's our friend and we like her. You know what I mean?
Mayor Wallace.
Thanks to the Chicago Sun-Times and Lauren Fitzpatrick, we have learned that since taking office, Governor Pritzker has received 130 gifts since taking office. And, since no one covers the gubernatorial gift beat anymore, some of you may be curious if that's a lot. Well, it's quite a bit. In comparison, thank God, ex-Governor Bruce Rauner logged 10 gifts in the first year of office.
Yay for our teachers! Yay for our teachers!
Wait a minute. Okay, so you have Rauner got 10, and how many did JB get?
131. Looks like here. Yeah,
people really like JB. They're really trying to curry his favor.
130. I'm sorry.
All right, get it right, okay?
Record showed Rauner received chocolates that December, 8 books, including one titled "Don't Sell Yourself Short," and a painting.
Okay, what was the painting of?
Didn't say what the painting.
I never heard of "Don't Sell Yourself Short." I was up late last night reading Norwegian Wood, an excellent novel. Did anybody give him Norwegian Wood?
I don't know. You can take that statement a million ways, but I'm just going to leave it alone.
Okay.
During his 6 years as governor, Pat Quinn racked in 1,294 gifts.
Wow. Whoa. 1,200. Wait a minute. So they only calculated the number of gifts Rauner got that first year. Just trying to understand this, right?
Yeah.
But they calculated the number of gifts Pat Quinn got for all. What was it? How many years was Pat Quinn in office for?
That's 6.
During 6 years. Yeah, 6 years. Yeah, that's right. 6 years. Okay, just trying to do it. So how many? I'm writing it out to see.
1,294 the 6 years as governor for Pat Quinn.
People love Pat Quinn.
Yeah, he said he received tchotchkes and all kinds of things. And the governor before him, well, not sure how many gifts Rob Blagojevich got.
He just got a huge gift from one Donnie Trump.
His recent post-gubernatorial gift trumps them all.
It's been a long time since I've shaved with a normal razor, and it takes a little practice. I'm sorry about that. I got to keep dabbing the...
So I have to apologize for his tardiness. He couldn't find where I put his socks this morning.
Oh, I love that shit.
Blago. You know what? It was somebody put it was Mark Brown who wrote a great column.
Marky B.
No, or it may have been Rich. I can't remember which columnist pointed out that Blagojevich was notorious for being late as governor, and so it's no different. It's like got people waiting. Let's make them wait, and so he's gushing blood from having cut himself. I've done that, by the way, D. I've cut myself. I know what he's. You take the napkin, and the napkin's all red, and
I've been there.
So I'm with you, Blago. I understand. Okay.
Now, gifts to Governor Pritzker came from ordinary citizens as well as dignitaries, companies, and organizations that he visited.
Wait, hold on. Time out. I forgot to write it down. Did you have a number of gifts to Blago?
No, I didn't. They didn't put
have
all that.
All right,
no, they didn't have any of that.
All right. 0 for Blago, except for Big Daddy gift from Trump. Got it.
Items include 6 hats, a smattering of scarves, 14 shirts. Yeah, billionaire needs more clothes. And 54 books, all valued at $25,230.
Wait. The books were all valued at $25,000
all together.
Oh, everything.
Hats, scarves, shirts,
expensive
54 books,
hats.
all of
$25,000.
Yeah, and of course, J.B. Pritzker was gifted liquor.
Was that part of the $25,000?
I don't know, but a $950 bottle of Habini Japanese whiskey and $450 worth of tequila were on the list.
You know, I'm got to be honest, folks. I don't believe in my entire lifetime, and I've lived a long lifetime, have I spent $25,000 on all the clothes. If you added up every nickel I spent on clothes, of course, people say, yeah, I could just look at you and see that. I am not as well dressed as JB. JB looks pretty good most of the time, doesn't he? So does Blagojevich. He looks pretty good too. But $25,000. Do you just think about that? $25,000 worth of expenditures. That just blows my mind, man. Man, Bloomberg spent more of that in 5 minutes on commercials yesterday.
According to Pritzker spokeswoman Jordan Abadea, the governor did not keep any of the gifts.
What do you do with them?
Abadea said, quote, "We're in the process of identifying the charities that could use the variety of gifts that have been given to the governor." Oh, and added, besides, he has like 20 bottles of that Japanese whiskey already.
Give the Ben Joravsky Show $25,000. We'll take it.
Now, if you're listening right now and you would like to give a billionaire a gift, send it over to the Capitol building. Or if you live in the city, for faster delivery, just drop it off at the Thompson Center. He'll probably pick it up in like 20 minutes.
Or there's there's a Goodwill right around the corner from here where we love to go to.
Oh, that's an awesome Goodwill.
Yeah, so maybe Governor Pritzker, just take it over there, okay? Some of those, some of the fine shirts that you got and nice hats.
He's filthy rich. He loves the Thompson Center, everybody. But hey, let's not get it twisted, okay? Being governor is tough. And maybe he opened up a bottle of whiskey after this went down. The following comes from the Chicago Sun-Times and Mitchell Armentrout. Governor J.B. Pritzker on Thursday forced out three members of the Illinois Racing Board for allegedly making illegal political contributions, leaving the state's horse racing regulatory agency in flux as the struggling industry jockeys to get back on track with help from a massive gambling expansion. The abrupt resignations of Racing Board Chairman Jeffrey Brincat and Commissioners Edgar Ramirez and Gregory Sronce, S-R-O-N-C-E.
Don't look at me.
Sronce?
Why are you looking at me?
Sronce.
We're going make him French.
We're going Gregory Sronce.
Because, like, who can correct you? You know what I mean? Who knows? There's nobody out there that knows the correct pronunciation of this guy's
and there's
name.
no editor for the Ben Joravsky Show, all right?
I don't believe there's anybody in the editorial desk here at the Sun-Times to know the correct pronunciations. Let's ask Rummana when she comes in, all right? Don't tell her we're going to ask her.
So Jeffrey Brincat, Edgar Ramirez, and Gregory Sronce were the result of apparent violations of a new, violations of a new provision, including in the gaming package signed into law by Pritzker last summer, which bars board members from giving money to politicians. Anything you'd like to say?
Yes,
there,
I would
Ben?
like to say, I read this article. I loved it. First of all, I love the little joke. The struggling industry jockeys to get back on track. Get it? Jockeys. Tell you what, they got a million
Where would
of
we
them.
be without you, Ben?
The Chicago Sun-Times, man. They got a million of them. But, so the rules were set that you're not supposed to give donations if you're on the racing board to politicians. And what I found interesting was the politicians. I read this story, D. I read this story when I woke up this morning. Okay, got up really early today, by the way. Just want you to know that. I was reading Murakami, and then I started reading
Good for you.
Yeah, thank
Wake
you.
up early.
I got up 6:30. Of course, I went back to bed after
We're
a
all so
while.
proud.
But anyway, so yeah, I was reading this story. Like, okay, Brincat, Chairman Jeffrey Brincat felt compelled to give $1,000 to the campaign of State Senator Tony Munoz. Why? What? Why? That's the question. Why, of all the state senators, Tony Munoz from the southwest side of Chicago, what was it about Tony Munoz that you liked? And he doesn't really need it. He's like annihilated everybody who's run against him forever. Why would you give him $1,000? Like he doesn't need it. What are you trying to get out of it? What has he done? I mean, he's just a run-of-the-mill Madigan Daily Dem from the southwest side.
He seems nice.
Former
though.
HDO guy.
He seems like a nice guy, though, right? He deserves it.
Let's just give him $1,000 for being a nice guy. Your good friend Sronce, a Springfield attorney, was appointed to the board by a Democratic governor, Pat Quinn, gave $1,000 to the Sangamon County Republican Foundation. All right, here's my question. This is why my beloved Democrats always lose, D. This is what I saw. The guy was appointed by a Democrat, and he gives the money to the Republicans. I don't believe you can name one Republican in this country appointed by a Republican who then turned around and gave money to the Democrats. I know right now as we speak, Frank is
Going
He's
to
going to
town.
prove me wrong. Prove me wrong, Frank. I stand by that. And then finally, Ramirez, who was appointed by Bruce Rauner. Oh, wait. You know what? Frank, look no further. I've been proven wrong on my own show in the next paragraph.
Man, it only took about a minute.
He was appointed by Rauner. He gave
Yay for our teachers! Yay for our teachers!
I was proven wrong. He gave $200 to Michael Rodriguez's campaign in the 22nd Ward. Alderman Michael Rodriguez is a Democrat. I just proved myself wrong. I guess Republicans are dumb too. I just say, guys, don't give money. They put you on a board. Don't give money. See, here's the thing. They always go, in Illinois, you have to pass new laws to protect us from corruption. No, we all know it's not right. If you're on a state board, you should get out of the business of giving money to politicians. You know, if you're on a board that's regulating a very controversial industry that depends on government assistance or government laws and rules and regulatory matters, don't give them money. Duh. But no, don't give the money. He felt compelled. There was something about Michael Rodriguez that Ramirez really, really liked.
He's nice. A nice guy.
Illinois politicians, I don't know.
All right, and making her second appearance on Friday's Ben Joravsky Show local news segment, it's Pritzker spokeswoman Jordan Abadea.
Oh, wow.
Here's the
Love
quote.
Jordan.
She's hustling this week. Here's the quote from Abadea, quote, "The Illinois Horse Racing Act states that no member of the board shall engage in any political activity. 3 sitting members of the Illinois Racing Board made political contributions. As a result, they were asked to resign, and each has submitted a letter of resignation."
All right. Well, guys, just common sense. But that's Illinois. I guess you have to pass a rule for absolutely everything because there's something about, I don't even know if it's fair to say Illinois. Maybe it's just something about human nature. If you're not specifically told not to do it, you're going to try to get away with it. So they felt compelled to give money to politicians who have a hand in overseeing the entity. Why should I be surprised? You got Ed Burke for years and years and years overseeing absolutely every contract that came through the Finance Committee, and yet somehow or other we thought it was okay that he would have a property tax appeal business in which many of the same people who were benefiting from his approval of city contracts, etc., could turn to him for assistance. So I guess you got to be really specific with the politicians in this state.
All right, now finally, one more story here, and it'd be great to get Rummana's
We're we talking about this one with Rummana Hussain? Are you kidding me?
There's a war on words happening in the city of Chicago. After a Board of Education vote of 5-2, Chicago Public Schools will no longer observe Columbus Day. On October 12th, 2020, it will now be known as Indigenous People Day. CPS is working to develop new curriculum to more accurately tell the history of Native American cultures. And since this announcement, a handful of Chicago elected officials are pretty pissed. The city council's 2 Italian-American aldermen spoke up. Alderman Nick Spazzato of the 38th Ward was so livid, he was, quote, ready to go to war. Here's more from Spazzato, quote, "Go ahead and have your damn Indigenous Peoples Day. Just don't have it on Columbus Day. They're taking Columbus Day away. I'm an Italian-American. He found America. They want to say he didn't. They want to say he did bad things. You know how many people were on those 3 ships when he came here? 90. You think he could do the things they're claiming that he did with 90 people?" Alderman Anthony Napolitano of Benwich Ward.
41st. Come on.
What?
41st Ward.
He's still got it, guys. Still a dork.
I once gave Napolitano a lesson on tips. Speaking of dorks. I think I've given Spazzato a few lessons on tips.
Alderman Anthony Napolitano, 41st Ward, called the change, quote, absolutely ridiculous. He said, quote, "If you want to have Indigenous Peoples Day, great, I'll celebrate it with you. Pick a day, but just not this day. But to have to get rid of Columbus Day for it is a slap in the Italian Americans' faces."
Well, I'd love to hear what Rummana Hussain has to say about this, and I'll just say this very briefly before we go to break and then bring Rummana on. Hey, Nick, you know I love you dearly, man, but to quote Mayor Rahm, take a chill pill, baby.
No, let's take a chill pill, man.
Oh, well, I to paraphrase
pill,
Mayor Rahm,
Take a chill pill, baby.
take a chill pill,
Be a
baby.
horrible thing for
Come
the mayor
on,
to say.
man. I know Nick Spazzato for a long, long time, but that's called a mountain out of a molehill. You know what? You want to name, have a day for great Italians? Pick someone other than Columbus. Most people don't even know Columbus is Italian. I don't know. You know what? I'm not Italian, and I'm not a Native American, so I really don't I'm not in this fight, but I just think if anybody takes a look at American history and what the settlers have done to Native Americans, it might be a good idea to just acknowledge it in some way or another. And I'm throwing that out there as an idea, America, like where we are right now, who used to live here, that kind of thing. Just don't rub it in their faces again. And like the name of the team in Washington. I refuse to say the name of the team in Washington, a certain football team. Rummana's thinking she's not a big football fan, but I think you know the name of that team. So I'm just saying, Nick, I love you dearly, man, but take a chill pill.
All right, everybody. Of course, we'll keep you posted on these stories as today's program rolls along, and more on Columbus Day Gate. With Sun-Times
Even
editor.
I didn't think of that. Columbus Day Gate.
Beat you to it. More of that on the way. It's the Ben Joravsky Show. Take a chill pill, baby. We'll be right back.
Read the Chicago Reader to get up to speed on what's what in Chicago. Culture, food, arts and entertainment, weekly concert listings, weekly event listings, the environment, travel. I can continue, but you get the point. And for all of you Chicago political junkies, raw weekly columns on real city politics from Maya Dukmasova and our very own Ben Joravsky. The Chicago Reader, free to the public in newsstands throughout the city and online at chicagoreader.com. Read it now and be a more informed Chicagoan.
How did you go from sharing stories over the years to deciding to write a book?
Good question, Mayor. Good question.
Did you know that 40% of the people in Illinois opt to be cremated? Well, it's true. And Chicagoland Cremation Options honors their wishes by providing cremation services directly to the general public. Chicagoland Cremation Options provides an affordable, ethical, and easy cremation arrangement, whether in person or online. Save thousands and streamline the process by going directly to Chicagoland Cremation Options. It's a family-owned business operated by my good friend, Douglas Klein. Here's how you reach them. ChicagolandCremationOptions.com. One more time, ChicagolandCremationOptions.com.
Ben, stop talking about the Bulls. Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show, live from the Chicago Sun-Times.
I love it when he does that. We were not talking about, not that there's anything wrong with talking about the Bulls, but Rummana is saying that is not one of her strengths, talking about the Bulls. God, there's so many things to talk about with you today, Rummana. All week long, I've been sending you clips of Donald Trump's visit to India and just awaiting your thoughts on his visit and whether that...
Columbus thought he was going to India.
And then you reminded me of that. It all comes together. Hence
He
the
thought
name
he was in India.
So he wasn't the greatest of geographers, all right?
Hey, MapQuest wasn't around.
And who am I to say? I still am not quite sure where Rockford is on the map, so I have issues. What's your general thoughts about this flap?
I have to say, as someone who's not Italian or Native American, on one hand, I can understand the Indigenous Peoples Day. And I was telling someone yesterday in the office, a lot of people, whenever Columbus Day happens, the day of, Indigenous Peoples Day starts trending on Twitter. So a lot of people feel, strongly about what Columbus did and the atrocities tied to the case. So I understand that. I know. And then on the other hand, I want to tell you, when I was younger, I loved Columbus Day because it was a day off of school. So I always thought it was really fun. And as I got older, I had no idea that Columbus was Italian. I'm just letting you know, because I would see the parades, I'd be like, why are there Italian American flags? And it just didn't, I don't know. I guess I hear the word Columbus and I don't think it sounds Italian. So as a kid, I didn't really put two and two together. And Columbus Day never really had a tie in to Italian American pride when I was younger. Although I went to a mostly Jewish school, so maybe would have gone over my head.
Grammar school or high school?
Grammar school and high school. I mean, there were, I'm not saying there weren't any Italians, but it was mostly Jewish kids, and there are other ethnic groups too, but that was a pretty big population. So I really didn't know that much about Columbus Day and the Italian American pride. and I understand Italian American pride too. There was a lot, there's still a lot of stereotypes of Italian Americans being in the mob. And I know whenever shows come out, a lot of Italian American groups are angered. But I just find it interesting. I don't know. The Columbus Day Parade yesterday, we're talking about in the newsroom, they said that it's gotten a lot smaller in the last few years. The participants have gotten a lot smaller. And I guess I never understood I understand it now, but I'm just saying I think there's a lot of Italian American pride, and I think that's why these aldermen are going off. And like you said about the chill pill, they are getting, Nick Spozzato is very passionate right now.
My good friend, Nick. Always, I'm not throwing you under a bus, Nick. I'm just saying, man. Come on.
But I think when we were younger, when I was younger, I was born in the 70s. We really didn't talk that much about. We talked about when Thanksgiving came around, like, some kids in the class would be pilgrims and some kids would be Indians. I don't know. Some years I'd be the pilgrim. I'd be wearing a pilgrim hat, and of course some years I'd be the Indian, and I am an Indian, but. And we called them Indians at that time. They're Native American. Now we call people who Columbus, saw discovered Native Americans. And then I remember in school we did talk about, wasn't there some sort of discussion about this guy, another guy, Amerigo Vespucci, that might have founded America before.
Okay.
Or maybe not. But I remember his name came up, and I was like, oh, he sounds Italian. So I just remember. There's all these questions about all these historical figures now, because we do raise questions, and we do have, there's accountability factored into a lot of these stories. And a lot of stories are, let's face it, they're whitewashed, especially of our quote unquote founding fathers or Christopher Columbus. My husband, Mick, was pointing out that George Washington's teeth, they were always talked about, and he recently came upon an article that said the false teeth that he had were actually taken from slaves. They're pulled out of the mouths of slaves to make his false teeth. And when we were growing up, George Washington's teeth were all, that
I thought
was
he
like
had wooden teeth.
They were real teeth that were taken out of the mouths of slaves. So, we all talk about George Washington, and he's obviously very sanitized for a lot of us. But, we do have to talk. We talk about Thomas Jefferson. He's always been revered. And I know people.
He had slaves.
Yeah, and he had slaves, and we know that he impregnated one of his slaves.
Sally
And a lot of people say that, it was this love story between him and Sally Hemings. But I think a lot of people would beg to differ and say that, no, he probably just forced himself on her, right?
I don't think you could fill this room with the number of people say it was a legitimate love story. There may be
one
person.
No, they're not, maybe not your listeners, but I think there's been movies where they kind of romanticize it.
There was a movie romanticizing the love affair, a love affair between.
Well, it was more like a
love.
Wasn't I forgot. There was one, I think Nick Nolte was in it. I think he was Jefferson.
You're kidding. How did I miss that?
And then I think her name is Dan Dewey Newton. I think she played Sally Hemings.
I said correct.
I don't know. I got to remember. But I remember it was more of, I think Gwyneth Paltrow played his wife. And it was more like, less of a slave and master relationship, and more of a like, I love you kind of thing. And a lot of these stories have been sanitized, like, this guy was in love with her, but we know the story is a little different. So a lot of people argue whenever there's an argument and people talk about these historical figures, they're like, well, you can't pretend that they didn't do anything at all. I know some of these aldermen are saying you can't erase American history. Nobody's saying that they're going to erase it. They just want to call it a different day. And this is the school board. And Lori Lightfoot earlier today said the city is not going to stop celebrating, or not going to be calling it Columbus Day. The last couple of years, the Chicago Public Schools, the reason why this became, I'm sure you talked about this in your show, became a controversy within the last few days. The Chicago Public School Board voted 5-2 in favor of calling Columbus Day Indigenous People Day. And before, they kind of were both. It was like a hyphenated day, Columbus/Indigenous People Day.
Yeah. Well, by the way, that part of the story intrigued me. The 5-2 vote that shows that democracy, small d democracy, is finding its way to the school board. In the old days, generally it was a unanimous vote. The school board would meet beforehand, and they would basically say, "What does the mayor want us to do?"
Yeah,
and then they would vote that way.
Well, so Fran Spielman, just a few minutes ago, before I came into this office, she's doing a follow-up story with Lori Lightfoot saying that we are not getting rid of Columbus Day on the city side. So Fran was just looking over my shoulder, and Nick Spazzato had just talked to her. She had a piece of paper with scribbles, and she said that Nick Spazzato said, "Oh, I know they made this decision without her," meaning Lori Lightfoot. And he said if she would reverse the decision, that, you know, he said that would be he'd be very grateful if she did that. And then he also said, you know, you can't erase this liberal. He called it a liberal CPS board. That's a quote, liberal, unquote, can't erase history. So it was something of that nature. So I added that quote in, like those quotes in right before I came in.
All right.
So
I may have to bring Nick back to have this conversation. Although, see, the whole notion of erasing history. I mean, Columbus is a historical figure. Nobody is denying that he was a historical figure.
No.
The history that has been erased is what happened to Native Americans once settlers came here. That's the history that was erased. So people are saying, let's bring that history. So going back to Sally Hemings, it wasn't like Thomas Jefferson fell in love with Sally Hemings and said, come meet my mom and sit at the table with the family for Thanksgiving dinner. It was like they kept her in the back. So this notion that there's like this love affair between Thomas Jefferson and so you talk about, it's not erasing history, it's rewriting history.
Exactly. And I mean, like I said, I'm not Italian American, so I don't know what it feels like to be an Italian American. I can say that. But let's be real. Italian Americans have a lot of heroes in this country. You know, there's a lot of Italian Americans who are recognized. And I'm not saying Columbus should be not recognized. And I believe in Italian American pride. I have Indian pride. Although maybe not much right now, but I have Indian pride. I'm proud of being Indian. So I understand people being proud of being Italian American, but it's not like Columbus is the only Italian American
valid point
hero out there. I mean, just off the top of my head, Joe DiMaggio. You know, it's like there's so many Italians that have been. Italians are part. Unlike groups that I belong to, Italians are kind of seen as part of a larger group, and it's not. Italian Americans have been othered a long time ago, but they're not othered now. So, but I understand the Italian American pride. I'm not saying I don't understand it at all, but the passion is definitely interesting for me.
In Chicago, there's a tradition of every ethnic group gets something. You know, that's just the old Mayor Daley way. We actually went before Mayor Daley, Mayor Kelly. When you put together the Democratic machine, the Democratic organization, everybody got a little something.
Yeah.
So, let's call it Alderman Nick Spazzato Day. That's what I say we should call it. My good friend, Alderman Nick Spazzato. All right, let's move on from this discussion. I'm sure this will be raging for a while. And let's discuss India and Donald John Trump's visit to India. All week long, I've been sending you clips.
Trevor Noah clips.
Trevor Noah, he's a very funny guy, by the way.
And John Oliver.
John Oliver, yeah, poor Rummana's kid barrage. But did you see this one?
No, but I sent the one that you sent me today to my siblings. They died laughing. I sent it to Mick too.
Which one? The
one where at the end he goes, "Oh."
Okay, folks, Rummana and I have been. By the way, happy anniversary. It's been a year. We've been doing this show.
Happy anniversary
happy
to you
anniversary
guys.
to
you
you.
And Dennis.
Thank you.
And
Do I get a present?
Yes, you get a cup right over there. But make sure you wash it out first.
Oh, my God.
Ron may have drunk from it.
Oh, do you like Belvita cookies? Yeah. I think that's how you pronounce that, Belvita.
Yeah.
I don't know. They don't look that good.
No, they're delicious.
They're actually very good. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Take some on your way out and pass it to the editorial writers.
They're like I don't like cinnamon.
But anyway, from the get-go, Rummana Hussain has been our guest every Friday here on this show, and she's pretty much top 5, one of the nicest people in this building. So thank you for everything, and it's been a year.
Thank you for having me.
And I think it was very early on that you went on a riff. It was just a great riff. I don't even know what provoked it, but it had to do with
Probably about hipsters.
Was it hipsters?
White
or
hipsters.
Just upscale white women in America. And Trevor Noah went on a similar riff. So you take it away right there.
Yeah. So Trevor Noah basically talked about actually the very tragic things that are happening in India and how Muslims are being targeted by the current government, the BJP government. And at the end, Trevor Noah in this clip that Ben sent me earlier today said, I'm worried because I think this is going to affect what's happening in this country. So you think he's going to say something about Trump, but he goes, well, we all know in this country, rich white women like anything Indian. And then he talked about how they're going to take upon like beating people up that don't look like them and say how refreshing it is, like yoga. So there's actually been papers about how yoga has been taken over from Indians, and is now in the hands of white women who've commodified it to be their own. It's really funny. There's been actual papers on it written by Indian American people my age.
Do you practice yoga?
I've taken. I was telling my sister-in-law does yoga. She's a yoga instructor. And I have taken a yoga class. I think yoga's great. I mean, but Indian people always make fun of, like, if you ever walk by a yoga class, you'll not see anybody Indian in there. It'll all be white women wearing like these really overpriced yoga pants. So we always laugh about it because, Indians have been doing this for thousands of years. And now that, white women are doing it, it's considered really cool. And we're like, yeah, Indian people have been doing yoga for a while. I remember when I was younger, there was a show on PBS. It was like the one white woman who did yoga. This one, it was like only one white woman.
Wait, did they call it that? The one white woman who does yoga?
No, but it was really funny because at that time, it was a very nerdy PBS kind of thing. And I remember we'd laugh at it. We're like, oh, but it's like, she's doing yoga. And I've done yoga. Actually, Modi has really emphasized.
Do you know Ben does yoga?
Do you? I didn't know that.
Well, okay, this is confession time. I'm not sure what I do could be really called yoga, and I'm embarrassed to do it in public. But every night I do these stretches. So, yes, every night, obsessively.
And it's kind of hipsters. It's not even just necessarily white. I guess most hipsters are white, but there's also this thing called haldi doodh that our moms used, that a lot of Indian people made. But like now we like walk by like a trendy coffee shop and it says turmeric. They call it something magic milk or something, and we're like, that's called haldi doodh. Everybody, like every Indian person's like, oh my god, they're calling it this now, and we've been Indian people.
You're cool.
Yeah, we're just. No, but it's like we've been cool for a long time, but you guys made fun of us, and now that now you're doing it, it's cool. Like, when I was younger, my mommy would put the henna on my hands, and like kids were like, ew, what's that? And then the same kinds of people are hanging out at these music festivals, dancing around with bindis and the stuff on, the henna on their hands. So it makes Indian people very angry. They're like, yeah, you were making fun of us, people that look like you, like many years ago. Now that you're doing it, it's all cool. So we always make fun of that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
but the situation in India is very terrible right now.
Joking aside.
I was actually supposed to be in India. I had planned to go to India because Mick wants to go to India, and I only have 2 aunts left from my dad's side, and I want Mick to meet them because they're the only siblings left of my father. So I had planned to go there, and my mom wants to be there when my husband goes there for the first time just to make sure everything's okay.
What do they think Mick's going to do?
No, she doesn't think anything's going to happen to him. But it's like my dad came from a really rural village. Like, I'm going to have to tell Mick how to use a squat toilet. And my mom is also from not that big of a town, and I wanted him to see where we would go because my parents aren't from huge cities, and my parents wanted us to know where he came from. My dad was the only one who was educated in his family. So there's electricity in the town where my dad's from, but it's like always off. So it's like we were used to like nothing American around us. And so my mom just wants to go. She just wants to be there when we go. I'm going to take Mick to like many historical sites if we plan to go. But we do want to go to the smaller towns where my parents are from.
Wait, so you were supposed to go, right?
We were supposed to go. We had planned to go in February. And my mom was like, I'm so scared. We're Muslims, so our names are very Muslim. And then when I sign up for the visa, I have to write that we're journalists. So it would probably be a little... I've been to India also when it's been pretty... Like when there's been tension. I went to India right after the mosque was destroyed in 1992, 93. And I've been there right after the Mumbai terrorist attacks. So I've seen kind of the anti-Muslim sentiment around these incidents like get really tense. And so I was telling my mom, I'm like, well, we're not going to be in the city. But my mom was like, I feel like my cousins for the first time told my mom, do not come right now. It's just really, really
why
dangerous.
Why don't you go into it a little bit? Tell folks.
The BJP is the government, the ruling party the ruling government in India. Narendra Modi is basically seen as a Trump-like figure. Trump was, as you saw, there was people waiting outside the stadium to see Trump. Modi is very popular. And Trump is very popular too, but not by the people who are my people. Muslims, and for the most part, don't favor Modi because a lot of his laws. He has this law that's called CAA. I think it's called the CAA. I might be using the wrong abbreviation. It's basically grants refugee status to all these people who are coming to India, because they're being persecuted in their own countries. But basically, the bill says that everybody but Muslims or anybody who follows Islam is granted refugee status. So what that means is people who've been in India for years, and if they can't produce their citizen papers, and people in the village don't necessarily have these papers, they can immediately be said that you're a foreigner, and then they put them, there's already a camp set up. So, and most of these people who are targeted are Muslims. And so there's a lot of people protesting this bill, Muslims, Hindus, and other religions included. And they've been in the streets for a long time, for the last few days. And while Donald Trump was there, a lot of Muslim neighborhoods were set on fire, and I think the death toll is close to 40 or is 40, and 100, I think close to 200 or a little over 200 people have been injured. So this is while Trump was there, while Trump was trying to talk Hindi and not eating vegetarian food, which I thought was pretty funny because the right-wing government in India, or a lot of people who are right-wing, when there's been killings of Muslims if they're quote-unquote suspected of eating beef, because we know that cows are revered in the Hindu religion. So there have been people who have been killed for suspected to be eating beef. So Donald Trump loves meat, and he loves steak. So apparently, there's been articles about how his cabinet or people who work for Trump, they were worried about what he was going to eat. But I was telling Mick, my husband, I was like, India's changed since the 90s, in the big cities. There's a lot of American restaurants. Fine, he's not going to get beef, but he'll get lamb. He'll be fine.
Somebody will find a piece of meat for him.
But Modi's obviously is only going to give him vegetarian food. And I read somewhere that he did not eat any of the vegetarian food. And then we're laughing because one of my friends found, the menu for one of the events. And it was a broccoli samosa. And samosas are, I don't know if anybody knows I'm sure most of your listeners know what a samosa is. You know what a samosa is, right? Mm-hmm. So usually they're made out of meat. Everybody in my family likes it with meat, but I like it with potatoes, which is lucky for my husband. So my mom always makes me potato ones. Mixed vegetarian. He's vegetarian. Yeah. So whenever people see us together, they're like, "Oh, you must be vegetarian." I'm like, "No, I'm Muslim. I've been eating meat. I eat meat." The white guy's a vegetarian.
But then the white guy drinks. So there you go.
I don't know. So then I'm like,
and does yoga.
Yeah. No,
do yoga.
He actually said he used to do yoga in high school because his teacher did it. Well, I was telling you. So when you were asking, yoga is actually very good for you, and I have taken yoga classes. But when I've taken yoga classes, I start laughing really, really hard because you have these yoga instructors using these words, and it's they're just saying namaste, for example. They're like namaste, and then I'm like, they're just saying hi. They're trying to make it sound like it's some sort of exotic word. I'm like, it just means hi. Actually, NPR did a story on this. An Indian person did a story on how Americans or people who do yoga totally misuse it. And so when me and my younger sister were taking it with another Indian friend, and she was taking it very seriously, we're just laughing the whole time. And then during the yoga session, they hit a triangle, and they're like, "Oh, feel like you're chi." And then me and my sister started laughing. Yeah. And my younger sister took a hot yoga class once with another Indian friend. And so she told me, she had a Groupon. So she told me that they would laugh at the whole thing because this guy was so pretentious when he was leading the class. Yeah. And then he eventually told them that they could not sit together, or they could not do their yoga exercises together, because he said they were ruining the ambiance of the class. It was just really funny.
Man, that sounds like what the geometry teacher did to me back in high school. He made me and Steve Chikowitz move. You go over there and you... No, it was German, not geometry.
So it was pretty funny.
I mean, yoga's getting real popular. It's even downstate now. So
yeah, Modi has actually made yoga very popular. He's actually reinstated, which is good. Yoga's good. I have no problem with that. I have a problem with the anti-Muslim.
Yeah, that's the problematic part of the whole thing.
Trump, went, and all this bloodshed and mayhem is going on. Meanwhile, he's talking about Bollywood and how great India is, and how Modi is tolerant of minorities, and I think later when he came back to the United States, he's like, well, that's India's problem or something like that, or that's he was just kind of brushing it off. But anyway, when we're talking about the samosa, so there was a broccoli samosa. My friend's like, who the hell makes broccoli samosas? And then Mick was like, Mick happened to be there when me and my mom and younger sister were talking about it. And he's like, well, you got to understand, Indian culture is getting really popular, so people are going to try different things. And my mom's like, you know what she said? She goes, Indian people don't like broccoli.
Whoa, a proclamation.
She was telling Mick that a samosa with broccoli is not going to taste good. Sorry. So
Oh,
funny.
man, poor Mick. A proclamation. A definitive statement.
But they gave
I'm sure there's some Indian person somewhere that likes broccoli.
Somewhere does. But yeah, I've never seen broccoli in India.
Well, that's one
Indians
thing
like vegetables. My mom makes vegetables for Mick all the time.
I share. I just do not like broccoli. I mean,
Mick makes me eat broccoli.
just do not like broccoli. By the way, if I must say so, the aforementioned Mick, I just have to say this. As I was coming in today, I heard Mick on WBEZ, and we talk about him a lot on this show as Rummana, and his role as Rummana's husband.
He's Mr. Hussain. That's what people call him.
Yeah,
here.
Mr. Hussain. But when you hear, it's a whole different trip to hear him on WBEZ. Well, suddenly he's an expert on everything, and love Mick Dumke, one of my dearest friends, but I love to tease him.
Well, what was he doing? What was he talking about?
They were talking about the same thing we were talking about.
What did he say about Columbus Day?
Mick, what did Mick say? It was typical Mick. It was like, well, on the one hand this, on the other hand that.
He probably feels like, just like me, like as a journalist, like we're trying to see both sides and be objective.
Listen, I
don't have a problem with Indigenous Peoples Day. I can tell you that as a reporter.
We've had this conversation many times. I've had this conversation with Mick many times. And there's the public role that you have to play when you're a quote-unquote working journalist. And that's a public role where you don't make an opinion. You phrase it as critics say.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah, critics say. But I know Mick Dumke and I know Rummana Hussain, and let me tell you, they're human beings. They have opinions.
Journalists tend to have very strong opinions.
Yes, and a lot of journalists in the Sun-Times, journalists at the Sun-Times, I walk past them in the hallway. They give me an earful. So everybody has an opinion.
No, journalists are very opinionated.
Yes, they are.
And I think one of the things that's interesting, I have talked to younger journalists these days, and I think it's objectivity is very important, but let's pretend that who we are is not going to influence what we report on or think about. I don't think like a white guy. I don't think like a white person in general. I mean, I'm not going to pretend. I'm not going to pretend that what is happening in India as a Muslim person. I'm like, well, let's look at it both sides. No,
but here's the deal.
There's both sides.
You're not going to pretend, and you've made this clear in the year we've been having these conversations, and
I've written columns about being Muslim, so
no, but you make it clear, like you're not gonna, like what Donald Trump does. Donald Trump going to India and saying that Modi is like a symbol of brotherhood, which is completely not true. Meanwhile, I just want to point this out: Bernie Sanders is under attack for being too cozying up too much with Fidel Castro, who's been dead for how many years, and authority. But Donald Trump's free to go to India, and they come back. Anyway, so that strikes you in a way.
That's what I have been talking about. I mean, I'm not going to say who I'm going to vote for.
No, I always. You won't even say who your top three choices are.
I won't. But it's interesting because I was talking to my husband again. We have heated discussions, and I won't say why. But I just said that one time, he's like, well, this, Americans will see Americans. I don't know what Americans means. You know what I mean? But what does American mean? They're going to look at Bernie Sanders saying something, going to Moscow for his honeymoon and thinking that's weird. As someone who's gone to India since I was a little kid, when the only people who went to India were hippies, it's like, I don't know, going to Russia or the former Soviet Union is not that weird to me, or going to Cuba is not that weird to me. But for people, and a lot of as people who are Muslims are like, I love how nobody thinks that Donald Trump going to India and saying all this stuff, it's not a bigger news story, or that's not criticized. Because Muslims are the victims here. Could you imagine if it was the other way around? If Muslims were the ones who were butchering people in the streets?
He wouldn't have gone.
He wouldn't have gone, and if he did, that would have been a news story saying that he is supporting. So I've said this too. I think that when Muslims are victims, because we've been vilified so much, it's kind of like, oh, yawn. I know you said Americans don't care about India that much, but I think if it was the other way around and the Muslims were the ones persecuting minorities, which does happen in some Muslim countries, it would have been, oh, look at these crazy Muslim intolerant people.
I still believe Americans wouldn't care that much. Let's be honest.
If there were Christian Indians, yes, they would. There's Christians in India too. So I'm just saying
maybe.
Well, there's been so many stories. There was a story in Pakistan who, like, this Christian woman was not given water by these group of Muslim women, and I forgot what happened in the case. It was a huge news story.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying
but
that.
you're a news junkie. I'm going to point something out to you. You're a news
And
junkie.
I do follow South
and you
Asia.
follow things. And so you have a journalist's tendency. When you see something in the news, and I know this because I know so many journalists, you think everybody knows it. And I'm just going to break it down to you. Just because it's in a newspaper doesn't mean everybody. In fact, probably the best place to put something, if you don't want people to pay attention to it, I hate saying this, is in a newspaper. Because I'm the only one who subscribes to these things.
Well, yeah, most people don't read the newspaper. Most people look at, younger people just look at their Twitter feed.
That's right. So what you're saying is absolutely true in terms of if there's a political party that's beaming out articles about how Muslims are persecuting Christians, people who get those emails, you're absolutely correct.
But it wouldn't be a bigger deal. I just think
I agree with you on that point,
just
but
like,
I don't.
For example,
I just don't think it'd be.
There
as
was
wide.
There was a killing, and there were some guy who's shooting people in Germany a couple days ago. I forgot, and he wasn't like a brown person or someone related to Islam, and. If there's like one person
You're
that's
right.
killed,
It's a valid point.
like, it's like, oh, this Muslim guy killed someone in London and it's from page news.
It's a scary
if it's
story.
Like
It was a right winger, and mayors actually in Germany are concerned if they speak up against the new arising right, the fascistic right.
There is, I'm just saying, as someone of color and someone who is Muslim, I've seen the way things are covered or where they're placed. And I've told this to the guys on the copy desk. I'm like, how come that's not a front page story?
And what do they tell you?
They go, because like once there was a quote unquote terrorist attack in Brussels, and it was they're like, well, people know Europe, and I go, you know what? When there's terrorist attacks in Pakistan, it doesn't make front page news. And I can tell you there's more Pakistanis in Chicago than people from Brussels.
Yeah. All right, fair enough. Before I bring Monica Gordon on, my next guest, I need to get Rummana's recommendations. And obviously, you're not going to be recommending yoga at any studios.
No,
in Chicago.
I do recommend yoga. I don't think there's anything wrong
at any particular
with
studios.
I don't think there's anything wrong with white women doing yoga. My sister-in-law is white, and she like.
Can we have a clarification?
But
a clarification for Rummana.
It's just when people, it's like it becomes popularized once white people do it. That's what pisses a lot of.
By the way, and I
color
urge everybody, we should put out the Trevor Noah bit that he did, which I sent Rummana this morning. It's very
so
funny because he starts imitating. That guy is really funny because
with accents.
Accents.
He does white women very well.
And he does an Indian accent. I mean, he does everything.
He's from South Africa, so there's a lot of Indians in South Africa. So I bet he's had enough exposure with Indian people, so he understands the culture. So anyway, my recommendation this week, I don't know, I finished the Malcolm X documentary, which I think is excellent. And
on Netflix.
And Malcolm X is another example of American history and how we never really learned about Malcolm X until we got older as kids.
Oh, I remember an article in the Sun Times that was very upsetting to me years ago, where it was an article criticizing whoever the person running Cook County Jail was at the time, because they were giving Malcolm X's autobiography.
They probably thought it was too militant.
Yeah, they thought it was too militant. I'm like, this is a story about a man's transformation. He went to prison and he came out like a wise man. He spent all his time in prison.
So did you start the documentary?
No, I haven't started.
Oh, you have to watch it. I mean, there's some footage that it's just like you watch it. And I mean, I read the book 2 or 3 times.
I am going in the exact opposite. I am watching this absurdist comic book show on Amazon, Hunters, which I'm just utterly obsessed with. And it's probably why I'm waking up in the middle of the night, because I can't sleep through the night because it's so scary. So I'm going in the I will watch the Malcolm X one, but that's where I'm at now.
Yeah, and we're probably gonna start Narcos. The new, I think it's Narcos Mexico. It's a new season.
Number 3, right?
I think it's 4.
Oh, 4.
So there was like Narcos season 1 and 2. Then there's Narcos Mexico, I think, and then they kind of focus on how the drug trade, because it was first Pablo Escobar, focusing on him, and now it's like how the drug trade and all the things that happen in Mexico. So I'm looking forward to that.
All right, Rummana Hussain, thanks so much for stopping in every Friday.
Thanks for having me.
The Rummana Rundown, Monica Gordon on deck. We're going to bring her on when we return. Hey, D.
Yeah?
Did I tell you that the Ben Joravsky Show is sponsored by Rattleback Records?
No.
Well, it is. Rattleback Records at 5405 North Clark Street is Andersonville's full-service record store. Hey, D. Did I tell you it was voted one of Chicago's best record stores in the 2019 Chicago Reader poll?
Oh.
Well, it was.
Wow.
Rattleback Records, 5405 North Clark Street. Used and new LPs and 45s. They got CDs, DVDs, books, gifts, and much more. For more information, contact them at rattlebackrecords.com.
I've seen a whole lot of catfish, some turtles. No gators yet, though.
It's Chicagoland's adult entertainment playground. It's the world-famous Admiral Theater, 3940 West Lawrence Avenue. The Admiral is homegrown from Chicago, and it's the most conveniently located club in all of the city. 15 minutes from the O'Hare Airport in downtown Chicago Loop. Voted Chicago's best strip club, the Admiral has showgirls galore and a variety of adult entertainment shows. The world-famous Admiral Theater, open every day from 7 p.m. to 6 a.m. 3940 West Lawrence Avenue. For events, showtime, and other information, visit AdmiralX.com. Must be 18 years of age or older to enter.
So again, on behalf of Patty and Amy and Annie and me, we want to again express our deepest gratitude to President Trump. Like I said, as a Republican president and a Democratic governor, he didn't have to do this. But President Trump is not a typical politician.
That's right.
He's tough, he's outspoken, he gets things done. He's a problem solver in a business where too many politicians don't want to solve problems. All they want to do is play politics.
All right, that's enough, Blagojevich. Good Lord.
Blago on a roll there.
All right, hey, remember, downloaders, we live stream this program, all right? Tuesdays through Fridays, 1 until 3 p.m. Central Time at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites. And the Chicago Sun-Times YouTube channel. Go check that out on the YouTube channel, and you can join the Ben Joravsky Show live stream chat, hang out with like-minded political people, and a few trolls. But it's a good time, all right? So go check that out as well. And live streamers, you can download the show. If you miss any of it, don't worry. Both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites and wherever else you download your favorite podcasts. All right, hour number 2 of your Ben Joravsky Show is just moments away. But before we get into this, we got to thank the following unions once again for jumping on board and sponsoring our program. Unions like the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local 126 and District 8, the Illinois Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9, and the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150. Ben, I didn't have my copy on that one. I just memorized those three right there. Man. Whoa. That was crazy.
You've been doing it for a year.
And, of course, today's Ben Joravsky Show is brought to you by our good friends at the Chicago Federation of Labor. New song in 3, 2. Ben, you love the new theme song, right?
Yeah, I like the new theme song. Just one more time, we had a theme song for a long time, and then we got a cease and desist letter of sorts telling us we were violating copyright law. I did not know it was. We thought it was in the public domain.
Yeah,
and we got I think the letter from the law firm of Dewey, Suam and Howe. That old fucks. They got a million of them.
Catch them at Zany's this weekend, everybody. All right, hour number 2. Let's go. Maybe. Where's the song?
Oh. There we go.
Oh, it's this one. New music coming, guys, all right? Tuesday.
We got to pick up the pace a little bit with this.
Yeah, this is like an Irish Spring commercial. Actually, let's switch it.
Okay.
Let's do this piano one. There we go. This one's better. All right, here we go. All right. It is Friday, February 28th, and live from the Chicago Sun-Times Chicago Reader Studio on Racine Avenue, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. In this hour of the program, what's so
I kind of
funny?
like this song.
I know you do like it. It's the Ben Joravsky Show debut of Monica Gordon and Zach Koutsky. And now your host, Chicago Reader columnist Ben Joravsky.
Love this song. Life goes on even after you lose your songs. Anyway, Monica Gordon is tapping her toes to this song. She likes it too. Welcome to the show, Monica.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And Monica is running for state senator in the 40th district. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Let's first start by talking about where the 40th district is, so folks can just get a sense of geographically the area you want to represent.
So 4 counties encompass this district, so including South Suburban Cook County, that will be parts of Flossmoor, parts of Olympia Fields, most of Chicago Heights, most of Park Forest, University Park, Kankakee County, including Pembroke Township, and also Will County. Well, Will County would be University Park, Crete, Peatone, Wilmington, and then Grundy County, which is Bradley and Bourbonnais.
Yeah, so this is a large, diverse community. When I say diverse, I mean ethnically, economically, racially, the whole ballgame.
Yes.
All right, now tell folks a little bit about yourself and why you think you're the best suited to be the state senator from this district.
Sure. I just took a leave of absence. I was the executive director for the Illinois Legislative Black Caucus Foundation. I've done that for over 2 years. Before that, I did some lobbying in Springfield. Before that, I did medical sales for about 11 or 12 years. Amidst all of this, I've always been a community servant. I'm someone who's heavily involved in my community. Every Martin Luther King Day, I believe in pledging my time for service. And also, I have the ability to mobilize. I like to influence others to get out there and make a difference by making an impact, by doing something to help other people, to help your community. I'm very passionate about positive legislation that impacts our community and makes it better. As the the executive director of the ILBCF, I did a lot of fundraising, a lot of managing with a nonprofit. And I was exposed to legislation. I'm well versed in the legislative process, and have a lot of great relationships in Springfield, resources of that nature.
All right, now the incumbent, the previous incumbent for a long time, it was Toy Hutchinson.
Yes.
And Toy Hutchinson, and folks who listen to this show, she was a regular on this show. And then she became the cannabis czar, and we haven't seen her since. Just because she's busy, I'm sure it's not. She doesn't hold it against us. So is Toy staying out of this election?
Yes.
She's not endorsing anybody.
No.
But there's other candidates in the race,
Yes.
and the Democratic committeeman named one of them to fill the vacancy. Am I correct in that?
Yes.
All right. So why didn't you get that gig?
Well, I would say Kankakee County had the largest. Well, there's 2 committeemen that vote from South Suburban Cook County, Rich Township and Bloom Township. Also, there's county chairs. So Kankakee, Will County, and Grundy County, they had the majority of the vote, and they wanted someone who was from Kankakee. The son of a late senator was chosen.
Did you petition to get the nominees or their selection, or did you just stay out of that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I worked hard to be selected as the nominee. We had a extensive appointment process. I think I did a great job describing why I felt like I was the right one for the position. I have a handle on the issues. I'm passionate about the issues. Honestly, I was doing service in this community, in this district, long before Senator Hutchinson resigned. Specifically in Pembroke Township, for example. I met with the black farmers in Pembroke Township at Black Oak specifically about some of the devastation that they face. Before World War II, they were the 3rd largest manufacturers of industrial hemp. Now they don't have natural gas, they use propane. In addition to that, other problems, they don't have adequate water and sewage, they don't have a police department. And a lot of times poverty equates to crime. So, they do have a problem in Pembroke Township. But this is a community, I don't want to make them sound like victims because they're rich in assets. And so what I've done is I've tried to put together an advisory group, like an advisory council of the black farmers to bring that hemp industry back to Pembroke, with considering the passage of the Hemp Act last year.
Absolutely. I mean, cannabis is legal in the state of Illinois.
But we're talking about hemp, not cannabis.
That's correct. All right, correct.
So remember, the THC is extracted. So, no, we're not talking about cannabis. And hemp is used for, as you know, has so many uses, thousands of uses. We're talking about clothing, rope, anything.
Yeah.
Hempcrete.
Right. But I'm just saying that if the THC infused one is legal, then we should be promoting the non. That's all I'm saying. I'm not urging and advocating voters in your district to smoke cannabis. Although, hey, if you do, cool.
No judgment here.
No judgment, absolutely. So, all right. The pressing issue that I see it in the south suburbs, and agree with me or disagree with me, has to do with the long-awaited airport. And a friend of mine who may be in the studio right now is looking at me, nodding her head. Del Marie Cobb, my good friend, has just happened to be in the studio. But I think it's by 20 years we've been talking about.
Longer than that. So I've been knowing about it 20 years since I was an intern at WGN. But this is an issue that's been going on for about 50 years.
Wait, you were an intern at WGN?
Yes, 20 years ago, right out of undergrad.
Radio or TV?
TV.
Oh, okay. For a while, you thought you wanted to go on television?
Well, my undergrad major was in print journalism. So my best friend was on the plane with a woman named Karen Drew. Now she's an anchor, but she was a reporter for WDIV, which is an NBC affiliate in Detroit. And she's a chatterbox like I am sometimes. So she's talking to her. They met. She gave her her card. And so I ended up doing an internship in Detroit that summer after undergrad, and I came and I loved it. So I came back and I did an internship with WGN, and they brought me on to People to People. And so one day they covered the third airport, the South Suburban Airport, and they had Jesse Jackson Jr. and Reverend Meeks come in. So that was my first introduction to the South Suburban Airport, and that was 20 years ago.
20 years ago. Yeah, I remember the issue. Yeah, Jesse Jackson Jr., he was a champion of that issue. He got in a little bit of trouble, and he no longer was congressman. And I just don't hear that much about the issue anymore. It doesn't seem like it's on the front page. Correct me if I'm wrong. You're getting ready to.
Right now, at this point, we're the closest we've ever been. It's about 90% completed.
You mean 90% complete in terms of acquiring the land?
Yes. They have like 4,500 parcels. In addition to that, Pritzker just gave $160 million for the infrastructure of the roads leading to and from the airport.
So what does that mean? What do you think?
It means, like I said, we're closer than we've ever been. And then think about some of the objections to the airport included the city of Chicago administrations, the previous administrations. This current administration, I'm not saying they're for the airport, but they have not stated they're against the airport. So that's promise. And like I said, with our governor putting money into this happening, and we have the land, it's almost to go. And plus, think about the 5 fulfillment centers that Amazon has already. They're going to build 5 more. We're almost there.
So when you say that the current mayor of the city of Chicago has not expressed opposition, you're absolutely correct when you say there was opposition from previous mayors. I think the 2 previous mayors were vehemently against it because they didn't want anything that would take away from O'Hare and Midway and the control they had over O'Hare.
And this won't take away from O'Hare and Midway. Think about we're a transportation hub. Why don't we have a third airport? This won't take away from O'Hare.
Well, I think the fear that Chicagoans have, and take Chicagoans out of that sentence, the fear that our all-powerful mayors have is that any airport outside of the city of Chicago will bring in money that they won't get. And so, they're not thinking it like, well, people will come to Peatone, the South Suburban Airport, that would never go to O'Hare or Midway. They're thinking that it would be flights that would go into O'Hare or Midway. If they didn't go to Peatone, they're not getting the revenue. The city's not getting the revenue. Less money, less power. They're against it. That's sort of been the worldview of Chicago mayors.
Well, as an advocate of the Southland and the South Suburban Airport, let me say this. This will be an economic engine for the Southland. We've been forgotten. The Southland has been forgotten, and it's not fair. We need an opportunity to revitalize our community, and this is our opportunity. We're talking about 15,000 indirect and direct jobs at every skill level from day one, up to 50,000 by year 10. This is a no-brainer. We need to make this airport happen. And like I said, we've been left out in the Southland of so many resources. Now is the time, it's our time to have a piece of the pie, and we deserve that opportunity.
As state senator, what would you do to make it happen?
Well, I will definitely continue to build with the Southland leaders. I would say that Congresswoman Robin Kelly has done a great job of garnering support amongst all the mayors in the Southland, because pretty much every mayor in the Southland supports this airport, and continue to get investment to get the remainder of the land purchased, as well as additional infrastructure needed to make it happen.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the other issues that you're championing in this campaign?
Well, the theme of my campaign is economic development and prosperity, because I talked about how we lack resources in the Southland and we need our piece of the pie. So I talked about Pembroke Township. And I also talked about, bringing the hemp industry back. So that's something, too, to revitalize the community. In addition to that, in Kankakee, so the more southern part of the district, the mayor of Kankakee is working on a Riverwalk project. This will be a great tourist attraction. You're talking about restaurants, things to do, just all types of developments in that area. So when you have all these things in the district, it's all together connected. You can build more lodging in Pembroke, and that won't be too far from the riverfront. We need to clean the Kankakee River, because you want to, that's a great, not only a water drinking source, but you have a riverfront. You want to have a clean river to look at. And all of this works together. The South Suburban Airport will provide jobs for all over the district, not just the Southland, but for the Kankakee part of the district as well.
Is there any overlap between your district and the city of Chicago?
No.
So you're completely outside of the city of Chicago.
Yes.
So talk about the relationship between the south suburbs and the city of Chicago in general. I have some feelings on it, but I want to hear about your thoughts on it. It's always like south suburbs are like it just doesn't even exist. The land doesn't exist. From an economic development viewpoint, like people leave Chicago, they're gone forever. That's a Chicagoan's view of it. Do you think that's some accuracy to that?
Well, and I do think that I stated before, when we've been left out. We've been left out of the resource. We're forgotten about, and people are like, okay, there's nothing out there. Why would I move out there? And then some people are like, well, I don't want to live in a city. You think about the crime. And I think what we need to do is just get together and build together. But it's funny you say that, Ben, because I want to point out where you're speaking about the relationship between the city of Chicago and the south suburbs. Let's talk about this district in particular, where you have the northern and southern part of the district that don't really like each other. They don't trust each other. All of Cook County is sometimes looked down upon by the other side of the district, and sometimes the southern part of the district is looked down upon, and those in the south suburban part of the district. And I think that's a problem. Mm-hmm. That's a problem, because we need to build together. And really, even though this area is so demographically diverse, we share the same issue. We have a common goal, and that's economic prosperity. We want a better quality of life for ourselves and our families. And it kind of reminds me of sometimes you have that bickering between a lot of elected officials in the Southland. Yeah, I said it. You have some of that. And we need to stop. We need to come together, because the only way we'll build solutions, comprehensive solutions that will help all of us, is to come together and build together and stop trying to, build territory and isolate each other. We need to come together. And that's a great example.
Well, I could tell you this. I don't think I should mention names when I do this little anecdote, but we did a venture out to your district, the district you're running in, when I was at an old radio station. I can't remember the name of the station. They fired me. Doesn't really matter. But anyway, we did this show out there in your district, and it was set up by the local Democratic organization in Kankakee. Right, so we went out there. We interviewed a bunch of people from Kankakee. I thought it was a great night. I love the people in Kankakee. We had a delicious. Remember, we went out for dinner, D?
Oh, catfish.
Catfish in Kankakee. Had a great time. Came home. Got a call from a politician who will remain anonymous. Gave me how you came to my district and you didn't tell me. I didn't even know. It was whose district it was.
Well,
that's a
positive thing. That's a positive thing. That means they wanted to see you.
Oh, okay.
So that's not something to look at negatively. They wanted to see you.
Okay, I will take that positive spin, but I also
may say the same thing if I hear you come around my parts and don't give me a call.
But it was more like you went and saw them and you didn't see me. It was more like there was a division,
issue.
and they the side that invited me had not invited this particular problem. I'll do my best to not give away names and stuff. So I walked into the middle of just what you're talking about. And my ignorance, I admit it. I did not know. I'm a typical Chicagoan. It's just like all a blur to me. We're Democrats down there, and they were getting ready to run. And it was the 2018 cycle, I want to say. So they were going after, it was Trump country, and, they were promoting Democratic unity. And I walked into this situation where there was a mini civil war, if you will. You know what I mean? But you think you have the ability to...
I do. I'm a great mediator, and I have the ability to bring people together. I want us to unify so we can reach all of our goals. I think it's possible. Like in this diverse district, you have factory workers, farm workers, blue-collar workers, white-collar workers, low-wage workers, high-wage workers. Let's all get together and build together. That's what I want to do. I want to do this all together.
All right. You're in the studio. Since you talk about bringing people together, I just got to broaden it a little bit. We spend so much time in the studio talking about national politics. And whenever I have a politician running for office or an elected official running for re-election, et cetera, I ask them who they favor in a presidential race. And Monica, I guess you won't be surprised to know most of them say, I'm not going to tell you, Ben, because I want like the Bernie people to vote for me. I want Elizabeth Warren people to vote for me. I'm trying to think of Pete Buttigieg people to vote for me, et cetera, and so forth.
But to be honest with you, I'm still undecided. I'm between two. I'll say that. But
Okay,
I won't
that's
say
what.
what two.
Okay, see, that's what another thing I make people do.
Yeah,
List
walked
their
into
top
this one.
3. List your top. You don't have to put them in order. But you're not going to do that for the same reason I just said. You want everybody. Well, all right. Let me ask you this question then. Do you think you could play a role in bringing the various factions of the Democratic Party together? We were talking about, in all seriousness, yesterday. I had 2 people on the show yesterday. One was a Bernie supporter, passionate Bernie supporter, and the other was more of a centrist. And we've been talking about some of the things that Rahm Emanuel has been saying about, Delmary's laughing, about where the Democratic Party should go, and just in general, Bernie's vision of where the Democratic Party should go. And I have this sense, Monica, that the Democratic Party is heading for a very contentious convention, to put it mildly. If nobody comes out of this primary season with 50 plus 1% of the vote, I don't know where they're going to go. So do you think you could play a role in that? You talk about bringing different people together. You think you could play a role?
I do. And I would love to play a role in that because, like I said, we're the party of, I would say, family, morals. We're the party of the working class. And, that's the foundation of the party. That's the foundation of the party. So whether you're a centrist, whether you're moderate or you're progressive, we're in this together. So, yes, I do.
Did you have some experience with the Legislative Black Caucus? Just my knowledge of the Black Caucus, there's a lot of strong personalities in that group. They don't always see eye to eye, even though they're in a caucus. Did you have some experience in that way?
Well, I would say I worked for the foundation, but I worked along closely with the caucus members. You do have some strong personalities, and you have great talent within that caucus. And, what happens between family stays with family. I'll say that. And I would say that they work when it's all said and done, they work collectively to get things done, positive things done.
All right, very good. Monica Gordon is her name. She's running in the 40th District, South Suburban State Senate District that used to be represented by Toy Hutchinson, who is now the cannabis czar. Before I let you get out the door, Monica, any information you want to leave with, any websites, anything like that?
Absolutely. I need your help. I can't do this alone. I still need to fundraise. I'm confident about my strategy moving forward. We only have 2 weeks from Tuesday left. And I would love you all to go to my website, monicagordonforillinois.com. You can sign up to volunteer. You can review my position papers, but please visit my website, monicagordonforillinois.com. Whether it's a donation or volunteering, I would love for you to visit that website, monicagordonforillinois.com.
Very good.
Thank you, Ben, so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Thanks for coming in. I appreciate it. Zach Koutsky's on deck. I love it when my guests come early. We'll be right back.
Read the Chicago Reader to get up to speed on what's what in Chicago. Culture, food, arts and entertainment, weekly concert listings, weekly event listings, the environment, travel. I can continue, but you get the point. And for all of you Chicago political junkies, raw weekly columns on real city politics from Maya Dukmasova and our very own Ben Joravsky. The Chicago Reader, free to the public in newsstands throughout the city and online at chicagoreader.com. Read it now and be a more informed Chicagoan. Read the Chicago Reader to get up to speed on what's what in Chicago. Culture, food, arts and entertainment, weekly concert listings, weekly event listings, the environment, travel. I can continue, but you get the point. And for all of you Chicago political junkies, raw weekly columns on real city politics from Maya Dukmasova and our very own Ben Joravsky. The Chicago Reader, free to the public in newsstands throughout the city and online at chicagoreader.com. Read it now and be a more informed Chicagoan.
Let me take it to you from the beginning. Is Bernie Sanders unstoppable?
He's the front runner. He's not. He is stoppable. I don't know, but I would say this: the moderates have to coalesce around one person. If you have a divided field, we've seen this play out in the Republican primary in 2016. If there is not kind of a singular mano a mano, then he's going to get the delegate.
No indication that anybody's going to drop.
No, I mean this is what's clear right now, is that everybody has still a thread of a logic of why they should stay on either resource or delegate, and as long as that happens, he will continue to have 45% and that makes a majority. I do think people should take note. His entire strategy upends every electoral map that either President Clinton, President Obama, or the midterms of 2006 and 2018 put together. It's a different theory of the case, never been tested before nationally, and never been proven successful for any Democrat, either presidential or congressional majorities.
And if at Bernie Sanders, he did not increase the turnout in Iowa.
Hey, everybody, what you're about to hear are the piano stylings of Jeff Manuel. Man, listen to Jeff go. Jeff Manuel has been playing piano around Chicago for years. He's played for conventions, for celebrities, played in basement bars with blues bands. He's played at prestigious social clubs, fine restaurants, and in the intimacy of private homes. Book Jeff Manuel at jeffemanuelpianist.com. Don't worry, I'll spell his name at the end of this commercial. You know what Chicago Magazine said? They said that Jeff Manuel is, quote, as comfortable with Chopin as he is with Cole Porter. He's excellent and his performance is joyous. He offers an elegant stream of compositions and interpretations that entertains the mind but won't hurt the ears. To hear more of Jeff Manuel's work and to book Jeff for your next event, go to jeffmanuelpianist.com. I'm going to spell it out for you, people. J-E-F-F. M as in Mary, A, N as in Nancy, UELPIANIST.com. Take it away, Jeff Manuel.
Hey, Ben, you know of any good events going around?
Yes, I do. You want to hear about it?
Yeah.
All right, let me tell you this. Eroding beaches on Chicago's lakefront, warmer winters in the upper Midwest, microplastics in our water. What can any one person do? I'll tell you what you can do, D. Our best hope for saving the planet and ourselves is through the power of we. That's we, W-E, not weed.
Oh,
we,
okay.
all right?
I made that mistake the other day.
You made that mistake the other day. Get to the 9th Annual One Earth Film Festival, the Midwest's premier environmental film festival, March 6th through the 15th. You want to know when that is? March 6th through the 15th. 26 films, 48 events, 4 counties. Engage with filmmakers and experts. Venues include Tesla Gold Coast, Loyola University, Plant Chicago, Old St. Patrick's Church, Chicago Cultural Center, Lake Theater in Oak Park, and more. Go to oneearthfilmfest.org. One more time, D. oneearthfilmfest.org.
Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show, live from the Chicago Sun-Times.
Zach Koutsky in the studio. We're going to be talking organizing cannabis workers. Cannabis, not reefer, D. You got an update before we bring Zach on?
Absolutely, I do. First off, be sure to check out this weekend's Benny J bonus interviews. We've been hustling after this week's shows. We got lined up. Well, we have 2 already recorded. We're recording one after today's show. Let's tell everybody about them. First up, we got a doctor for Bernie.
Yes. Oh, my God, Pamela. Dr. Pamela from downstate Illinois. That was a great interview. I never thought of doctors being for Bernie because I think of Bernie as, stereotype, like disheveled bums like me. But no, they're doctors for Bernie. And she made a very compassionate and compelling and intelligent argument for why we need a Medicare for all. So I urge everybody to check it out. Dr. Pamela's been a doctor for many years. She's from downstate, so conservative Trump country. She talks about it as an employer. She talks about it as a consumer. And she talks about it as a doctor herself. So a great insight on how the insurance industry, just jacks up the cost of medicine for everybody. And this is from somebody who has been in the profession, the medical profession, for a long time. She's a listener of the show. She weighed in. She what did she email?
Downstate listener.
Yeah, she said, "Hey, I want to
They
come in and
exist.
talk about this." So downstate. Love our downstate listeners.
618.
618.
All right, so that's going to be on Saturday, A Doctor for Bernie. And you know what? I would love to see someone find a more diverse show than the Ben Joravsky Show, all right? We talk about a lot of things. We had a guy bring gumbo in last week. We got A Doctor for Bernie. And on Sunday, well, we're going to be talking a little theater. Isn't that right, Ben?
Yes. In the studio yesterday was Dr. Charles Johnson, who's the author of just a very compelling novel. It was a National Book Award winner in 1990. Middle Passages talks about it's an adventure story about a slave ship going across the Atlantic on the Middle Passage. I read that book way back when, and it's being staged. It's turned into a play, and it'll be the Timeline Theater. And so we were, the Lifeline Theater, and we were promoting it. And turns out that Dr. Johnson and I, Charles Johnson, were both Evanston residents, or we grew up in Evanston. So there's just, me. We start talking local stuff and talking race relations in Evanston, and it was a fascinating conversation.
So that's Sunday. That's going to be available at 6 a.m. at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites and wherever else you download your favorite podcast. And on Monday, Ben does an excellent impression of him. No words, but yet a fantastic impression. Our good friend Ken Davis returns. We're going to be talking with Kenny D. Okay, yeah. Well, he's going to say actual words. But Ben, what do you plan on talking with
Young
Ken?
Kenneth.
He's coming in after the show.
A dear friend of mine, Ken Davis, has been in the journalism business for a long, long time. And Sunday, he convened a symposium on the future of journalism in the city of Chicago. He had all the big-time operators were there, people from the Sun-Times.
Excluding you.
Yeah, Ben, could you not show up? Anyway, so I didn't make it, but young Kenneth will be in the studio. We talk about the future of journalism. And you know what? Kenny D's in the studio. We're going to be talking politics.
Absolutely.
We'll probably do a little Blago talk, knowing young Kenneth, and get his thoughts on Columbus Day Gate. I'm sure he has some funny things to say.
All right, and we're going to
Columbus
keep
Day.
Kenny D around after that interview, and he's going to join us for our Beyond the Column. It's a brand new podcast that we're doing here on the Ben Joravsky Show, where we take a deep dive not only on the latest column from our very own Ben Joravsky. Don't worry, I won't ask you the title of it right now. Do you know the title? All good. Don't worry about it. We're going to take the deep dive on that. You got a lot going on in that brain of yours right now.
No, I actually could probably drag it up.
We're going to take the deep dive on his latest column, which is at chicagoreader.com. And also what we do is we take a deep dive on a column of Ben Joravsky past. Turns out Ben's been writing these things since the 80s. So I went through and I found a cool article that we can talk about. It's election season, so I found a good election season article we're going to talk about. It's Beyond the Column and all these bonus interviews at chicagoreader.com, chicago.suntimes.com, and wherever else you download your favorite podcasts. Sorry, live streamers, you got to find them. You got to download them. Subscribe. I'm done talking.
All right. Thank you very much. Zach Koutsky in the studio. Zach, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
And you are the political director for the United Food and Commercial Workers Union. Is that correct, Senator?
Yeah, local 881 UFCW, 35,000 members statewide, Illinois, and then a little bit in Northwest Indiana.
All right. And the reason I dragged you into the studio is I heard you were organizing cannabis workers. But before we talk about that in particular, talk about in general who your members are.
Yeah. Up in the Chicagoland area, Jules, Mariano's, CVS, those are the primary membership employers that we've got, but we've got a ton of nonprofit entities out there. We represent some workers at other unions, front end kind of office staff like that. Downstate, more Schnucks, Kroger's, Dyberg's, and a couple independent grocers, and then food manufacturing increasingly as well.
Gotcha. So grocers, food manufacturing. So how is this a transition into the cannabis industry?
Yeah, so UFCW nationally was the first union to really even enter into this space over about 10 years ago. And we did so just realizing that there's a lot of similarities between the folks that we already represent, the industries that we're in, and what the cannabis industry was going to be. Also, we came into it because of the equity and criminal justice aspect to it as well. Overwhelmingly, we're a very diverse union, particularly up in the Chicagoland area, majority female, majority minority on that end. So the equity expungement component to this was always going to be pretty central. And however, we were going to advocate for this just because we know the significant impact that that makes on our members and their families' lives. But also then, ultimately, it's a job, and it's one that we really want to make sure that we, give voice to those workers within that industry as we would in any other. And so UFCW kind of came to it uniquely in that we were the first union to recognize this as like a legitimate group of workers to organize, but also then to make sure that those workers had similar access to our healthcare and welfare and pension funds. Mm-hmm. And so we were opening those up to cannabis workers, which, even today are still kind of kept in the shadows from the legitimate economy, right? You have issues with banking and access to typical financial products. Mm-hmm. And in doing so, we legitimized that, made sure that they were able to buy into our plans and get really good family supporting coverage for healthcare, health and safety funds. And then, you can have a pension working in cannabis.
What particular workers are we talking about? So when you say cannabis workers specifically, what are you talking about?
Well, I mean, we would talk, seed to sale, although, I'm learning you can't say seed. Those are all kind of the immaculate conception of cannabis plants here. They just happen to come down. There's no seed.
Why can't you say seed?
Because, you're not allowed to. Where is the seed coming from? Where are you trafficking that in from? It would be across state lines. So it's actually all the plants are really clones. They're cuttings. I see. And then you propagate that.
Can't you just say metaphorically seed to sale, whatever? Okay,
sure.
All right.
Except, you're picking your seeds out typically,
right.
So, but full gamut of the employment in this. So most notably in Illinois, UFCW last month won the first election. Workers won the first election in Illinois in the cannabis industry here. And that was at a large-scale cultivation, production, and packaging facility down in Joliet, Elwood area. And those workers literally are everything from order fulfillment, packaging, extraction, processing, infusion, edibles, down to, the folks that answer the phone, on that end, transportation, maintenance within the facility there as well. Unfortunately, it did not include, and this is something we're going to be working on going forward, it did not include the actual garden workers, the cultivators, because that employer, as they've done elsewhere, said that those are agricultural workers, and therefore they're not covered by the National Labor Relations Act. So you had a big group of really highly skilled, very technical workers who are actually dealing with the product, right? I mean, without them, you have no cannabis industry. And unfortunately, their employer was successful in challenging their ability to stand for the election, despite there were 16 members in that unit, and we had 14 of them sign cards. And the Trump NLRB, National Labor Relations Board, agreed with that employer and said, yeah, they're ag workers. They wouldn't be able to stand for an election. So that's something that we're definitely now using that experience and those stories of those workers, not only from that company, but from the industry writ large to say, we've got to revisit this because this is a growing segment.
Let's just let's pause for a moment to just talk about the NLRB. If we can, like educational moment here.
Can you swear on this show?
You're allowed to swear. No. It's a podcast. Yeah,
it's not good right now.
The NLRB governs disputes like this
in elections. It governs the election.
Yeah,
process.
Talk about how this matter came before the NLRB and what was the specific issue that they had to address and what the vote was, all that stuff, so people understand how Trump impacts, appointees impact. This is something I wrestle with all the time because I'm supported by unions. I love unions. I'm in unions, but I know a lot of union workers. They'll say, Ben, they like Trump. They'll tell me they like Trump, or they don't care. They don't like the Democrats, or it doesn't matter. They don't see how the election impacts them. And I'm always trying to talk about, judges and appointees, and it's not something as visceral, Zach, as, let's say, Trump getting up and denouncing, making fun of another candidate, or, playing one group in this country against another group, but it has an impact on people's lives.
Oh, I mean, he's pitting groups against groups. In this case, he's an employer class supporter versus the workers that he purports to, support, and he's going to be the champion for. In case in point, as he is appointees to the National Labor Relations Board, which in America governs union elections, governs disputes within employer and employees. And before you can, and they even govern before you're an actual union member, unfair labor disputes. When you file that, and unfair labor practices, you file it through the NLRB, and if they're willing to take a critical view of an employer position and habit and practice, or not, that directly impacts workers even before they're in a bargaining unit. And so we, in this election, and I should say it's with Cresco Labs, a large scale, one of the largest cannabis companies in the country, based here in Chicago. We went into that election back last September with a majority of workers at this huge facility that they've got down there, having signed cards saying there's workplace issues, we want a union, and we are hoping that the employer would voluntarily recognize, not have to go through an NLRB governed election. Unfortunately, they did not take that approach, so they forced us into an election. But that NLRB, before we even got to that, the employer, as they're allowed to do in this 90-some-year-old labor law that we have to operate under in 2020, was able to challenge groups of those workers, units of those workers to stand in that election. And so by and large, the employer said, okay, we understand order fulfillment, packaging, maintenance, again, infusers, processors we will not challenge their ability to stand in the election, but we will challenge the garden workers, the people that actually grow, tend, and maintain the plants and the product. And we're going to do so because we're going to claim that they're agricultural workers. And again, this National Labor Relations Act that was passed in the 30s is what we're still operating under today. And that was specifically passed in the 30s to deny Black and Latino workers who, again, much more larger scale and exploitative agricultural industry from having labor rights, from getting a little too powerful, right? And so the compromise was agricultural workers are not covered by the National Labor Relations Act. Public sector workers weren't either, but almost every state, if not every state, has set up a public labor board on that end. But so they were able to challenge and say, listen, these people touch plants, they tend to them, they are, operating as an ag worker, therefore they should not be able to stand in that. Trump appointed majority on the NLRB agreed with the employer and said, we are going to deny these workers labor rights.
All right. Now, was there a split vote? Were there Democrats appointees who voted for the union?
On the NLRB?
Yes.
It was as far as I know, it was a decision that, majority or not, but it was a decision that was fairly quickly met and came down on the side of the employer.
All right, let's break this down. So you're talking 16 growers, correct?
Yeah.
This folks, this is how this works. So...
Well, the overall unit was the ultimate unit that got to vote was 100, but we filed with, I think, 116 positions within that facility.
Right.
Non-supervisor, management.
So let's break this down. You have 116 total. Of the 116 total, 16 are the quote-unquote growers, agricultural workers. So what the operators of the facility argued is that because they're agricultural workers, they're not governed by the NLRB sanctions forcing them to or allowing them to have a union, and so they were just going to challenge their existential right to have a union. They brought in lawyers, I presume.
Oh yeah, very anti-union lawyers.
Very anti-union lawyers. So my brothers and sisters in the legalized cannabis movement, which is all about social equity and finally eradicating, the divisions that have made this recreational activity okay for some people to do, not okay for other people to do. Zach, nobody has worked harder to make it legal than I have. So you're welcome, guys, in the growth industry, because I was knocking on the door before you guys were there. They've arguing that the growers, well, technically they're not. They're agriculture, so they don't get to unionize. How much money are they saving by this? Like, how much money would they have to pay their employees if their employees were unionized? Do you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's typically a third. third more that a unionized employee in the same position would get more than a non-union employee. And that's not even considering the overall, ancillary benefits of better, more affordable health care, the ability to access a pension in addition to a 401k, a defined benefit plan, right? I mean, what you pay into it is what you're going to get coming out of there. And then, obviously just the small d democratic voice on a job that if you think that you were unfairly treated by your supervisor or your manager, there's a process by which a contract governs that, write up or that, discipline to happen. And if it's BS, it's, if it's bullshit, it's tossed. And so, the employer, challenge it. That's the second time in Illinois that's happened since the Recreational Cannabis Tax Act was signed into law in June. There was a group of workers as well at a cultivation facility up in the Rock Island area where they were ultimately unsuccessful in their election by only 4 votes. But that was because, again, the employer was able to remove the cultivation workers from standing in that election. If they had been able to stand in it, it would have been a successful election on behalf of the union.
So these cultivation centers, this is the hill they're dying on.
Not everybody. I should say there are plenty of employers. My union nationally represents over 10,000 cannabis workers. One of the coolest parts coming into this was last summer and fall, myself and a couple of my colleagues from Local 881 traveled the country and went to union employers, cannabis employers in other states. And in every single one was a cultivation facility that had wall-to-wall union representation in it. Here in Illinois, there are going to be, and there already are, employers that have agreed that they will not challenge it. And that's kind of the unique aspect of where we are right now in this, process of organizing within the cannabis industry. We are very proud of the workers that stood tough over months and ultimately won themselves an election in Joliet by almost a 2-to-1 margin. I mean, it was a significant margin where the employer did not challenge it. We're, looking forward to heading to the table to knock out a contract here. But, the existing industry is treated differently under the law than the forthcoming industry. And I'll give you an example. In the forthcoming industry, we lobbied and ultimately were successful on behalf of the union movement in Illinois, and not just UFCW, SEIU and the Teamsters and Operating Engineers 399, along with the AFL-CIO, really pushed to have labor standards built into the law going forward. And so for any type of license that's being applied, we just finished up dispensary applications last month. In 2 weeks, we're going to finish the craft grow, infusion processing, transportation license application period. Those licenses for the new set of owners and operators are going to get rolled out starting on May 1st. And in all of those, there's an incentive for an employer, for an applicant, to go with a pro-labor position, a pro-worker position at the outset, because they actually get more points in their overall application. So we had in the dispensary, there is incentive in the law called a labor peace agreement, and it's written into the section of labor and workforce that you are literally graded on within your application on behalf of the state that says if you agree to good living wages, healthcare, retirement, stable scheduling, and a labor relationship, you're going to get X amount of points towards your overall application. In the dispensary round, there was around 4,000 applications that were put in for 75 licenses. Our union executed labor peace agreements with over 1,700 of those and over 350 companies. A majority of the companies signed labor peace agreement, which really just says we're going to be neutral in any union effort, be that led by a union organizing or worker-led. We're not going to oppose it. In some cases, we'll outright support it.
In other words, and neutral means, in the case going back to the one that was contested, they would not contest the right of growers to be in a union.
Yeah.
They would not make a grandstand against it. By the way,
they don't have to be out there waving the flag saying you got to go union, but it is your decision. And ideally, it wouldn't even go to an NLRB vote or an election. It would be, we would go to them and say, here's our majority cards. You can match it up against your employer list. We always say we can bring in a priest or a politician to be a third party. I don't know who trusts which on that end, but to literally match it up against your employee manifest.
Yeah.
And if we've got the majority, save everybody time and money. Just allow for the bargaining unit to exist. We'll file and we'll move to the bargaining.
Do you have any idea how much they had to pay their lawyer?
a lot. It's not a cheap firm.
So-
I'm sure we'll be able to figure it out at some point.
Well, I'm
but-
just saying, you said there's a third difference. So if you had to, pay $100 to your workers or $133 to your worker, how about that quick math, huh? I'm sure they spent almost as much on that law firm fighting this. This is what I don't understand. Zach, I'm not really seeing, like, in the long term what benefit they gain.
Yeah.
Because, follow me on this, if the Democrats prevail in 2020, if a Democrat, be it Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren or Michael Bloomberg or Peter Buttigieg, take your favorite Amy Klobuchar, I don't want to forget anybody on that stage,
Biden.
Joe Biden, it prevails, I know there's going to be a different makeup of the NLRB, and I got a feeling your union will go right back to it to demand that growers be allowed to form a union. Do you think they'll still resist you if they know that there's going to be a losing vote at the NLRB because the Democrats will have appointed new members?
A majority of the board. Yeah. They very well could. I mean, again, that's the sad reality is that ag workers federally are not recognized as workers with labor rights, and that hasn't changed under Democrat or Republican administrations. Where there would be a different approach to it would be kind of the precedent setting. How many times do you as an employer want to be before what is inherently going to be a more pro-worker board on various disputes? That's a cost-benefit analysis an employer would have to make. But certainly at other states, there are ag worker boards that govern and oversee a agricultural workforce, just like they do with teachers and cops and firefighters and prison guards in the public sector here. Illinois is a state that does not have a labor board for ag workers, despite agriculture being the largest industry in the state still to this day. But we feel like we're going to be in a good position to say this isn't like an esoteric thing that's happening. The legislature and the governor very progressively drew up a law that has a lot of really good stuff in it. And now that it's actually in effect, as with any very complex 600-page sum law, we're starting to find some, bumps in the road and kinks in the hose in its rollout. And so this is one that, we're just saying, hey, it could happen. It's happened twice. And so I think we're going to be in a good position to say this law was drawn up and passed ultimately with labor support. I do not think cannabis legalization would have passed had organized labor not given it our stamp of approval and actually very aggressively lobbied on its behalf. It was passed with labor standards in there. And on May 1st, there's going to be the cleaving of the industry, those that were before and those that are after. And those that are after have a real incentive to be much more pro-union or at least neutrality towards a union effort than those that were there before.
By the way, I don't know if you know the answer to this question that just popped in my mind while I was listening to you, because this stuff happened long before you were around. But how did the farm workers in California with Cesar Chavez have the wherewithal, the right to organize into a union if agriculture workers are not allowed to do so?
They have a state board for ag workers. So again, similarly to what cops, firefighters, nurses, public sector workers have, because again, public sector workers were not brought into the National Labor Relations Act as well. So then each state set up a public sector labor board that governs, again, disputes, elections, and just allows that workforce to have a union right.
So if J.B. Pritzker and the Democrats put together a state board governing agriculture workers, it would circumvent the NLRB and all these dispensary operators, the owners, would have to go before the Illinois board and
you could draw it up in a bunch of different ways. You could
trot
say,
out their arguments for that board.
Yeah,
Good luck, guys.
You could say, and our governor is wonderfully pro-labor. We've been a strong supporter of his, even when he ran against Jan Koutsky for Congress. We endorsed him. But
were you around for that? You
I
were too
wasn't.
young.
I was not, but my union and my union's leadership definitely was. And so we've had a long and very productive and fruitful relationship with the
10
governor.
trivia points. Who was the third candidate in that race?
Was the third? Oh, man. I don't know.
I can't believe I know. Howie Carroll.
Oh, yeah. State senator at the time, right?
That is correct.
Yeah.
And David Sirota worked for him. I always tease him. David Sirota is press aide to Bernie Sanders. He's a total lefty, but
and
back
then
in
some.
the day,
Yeah.
But back in the day, he was working for the machine. Howie Carroll.
There you go.
Next time you see David Sirota, go, hey, David, how was that Howie Carroll job?
All right.
Go, hey, that's not funny.
But yeah, I mean, there's different ways that you could set up that approach. Would it be the entire cannabis industry would fall under that board? Would it be, just agricultural workers, and then obviously then it would be a smaller slice of that. But obviously then that brings in a lot of other players to the table. Last I checked, again, ag is still the number one economy in the state of Illinois, so there's a lot of agricultural companies and workers out there.
No, you're right. There would be so much wheeling dealing going on in Springfield, like who gets in and who gets out on this agriculture board. Some industries would have the inside advantage. They would probably, in the middle of the night, get cut out of the deal. I could just see this thing going down. It's a whole other story I'm envisioning.
But it's not to say that it's always static, that it's without. New York just last year opened up, and set up a similar setup to have ag workers in New York. Covered, with a board.
We're going to take a break after this and switch to national politics, have a little national political discussion with Zach, who is an Elizabeth Warren delegate. We'll talk about that. But I'll just close with this. The cannabis industry is a growing industry. It's thriving. A lot of people are going to like a lot of money. God bless you. It's America. It's capitalism, etc. But the movement itself to legalize cannabis, to legalize reefer, that is now going to make people a lot of money, came out of people standing up to the injustices.
Yeah.
And that's what motivated it.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's guys, just think about that. You're on the backs of people. You didn't just get there where you're just rolling into cash. There were a lot of people who were fighting for the legalization of reefer, and they were doing it based on things like, there's got to be a more equitable, fair way to do it.
There's going to be our argument, labor's argument was equity and expungement. Obviously, this disproportionately affects working people, those that bore the brunt of, I was smoking weed when I lived in Naperville, but I was a suburban white kid. I wasn't getting popped by cops, but if you're a black kid in Chicago, you very likely were. And then the diminutive effects that it has on your entire life going forward, that needed to be righted. And I'm so excited that it is. Incredible leaders like Kim Foxx and the governor, and Kelly Cassidy and Toy Hutchinson and Heather Staines and leader Gordon Booth set that process now in motion, to get that done. But we always said as labor, then you need to make sure that that gigantic pool of money that's going to be created for a lot of really already pretty well off white owners also then trickles down to what we think is going to be a larger, much more dispersed group of workers. And imagine the incredible impacts that when this cannabis industry, which studies here are looking at anywhere from 60 to 65,000 workers in Illinois. That's a domestic market of jobs. Imagine the good that could be if they all have living wages, solid health care, a retirement that you can rely on, a voice on the job, and an opportunity and a pathway from turning that job into a career, and then the ripple effect that has in those communities and for those families. So the labor movement is in this space. If you're a cannabis worker currently, if you're an applicant, go to ilcannabisunions.com, and that's ilcannabisunions.com, and you can see exactly how the labor movement in Illinois is approaching this industry and giving a voice and an opportunity for cannabis workers to stand up and make sure that their job is one worth having.
All right, that's Zach Koutsky talking about unionizing cannabis workers. When we come back, we'll talk about Zach Koutsky as a Warren delegate and the race for president. We'll be right back after this. This is Ben Joravsky.
And this is Maya Dukmasova.
And this is the Chicago Reader's Backroom Deal, and we're talking about the presidential election in Illinois.
That's right, the top of the ballot on March 17th. Most important thing to know about this is that the purpose of the voting for the presidential nominee, whether you're in the Democratic Party and you have a Democratic Party ballot or a Republican Party ballot, is so that the state can assign its delegates in order to actually select the nominee. On the Republican side, it's going to be pretty simple. Presumably, Donald John Trump is going to be the Republican Party nominee. On the Democratic side, as we all know, there's a slew of candidates, and the Democratic Party nationally has to pick who their nominee is going to be to run against Donald Trump. So, Ben, let's just explain to folks what delegates are, how they're assigned, and what their vote on their ballot on March 17th will actually mean for the process of selecting a Democratic nominee to run against Trump.
All right. Well, the delegates are the party representatives who show up at the convention, the Democratic convention in Milwaukee, and they get to vote on who they want the Democratic nominee to be to go up.
And what you just heard there was the latest Backroom Deal episode. Who were the delegates? Ben Joravsky and Maya Dukmasova unpack all of that in the newest Backroom Deal season number 3 they're in. They're available now at chicagoreader.com. Go check those out. That was just a little sample of what you'll get there. And also, the latest Fran Spielman show on chicago.suntimes.com. Well, she had one of Ben's favorite people. Former Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel was on the program talking with Fran Spielman. Yeah, Ben's neighbor. He didn't say anything about being Ben's neighbor, believe it or not.
No, he didn't say it.
No,
Should I give a shout out to me?
Yeah, he did. He did not. No, but no, they talk about his new book. Ben, what are your thoughts on Rahm's new book?
It's a book. It's got a cover. And
it's a book.
A couple pages.
It's got a public. Yeah. The real issue, did Rahm write the book? The jury's still out on that one.
Now, I don't know if Ben would go suggesting you listen to it, but I am. Go check it out. It's the latest Fran Spielman show. Every week, a brand new episode at chicago.suntimes.com. This week, yes, former Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel. Hey, who knows? You may end up buying a new book at the end of that interview.
You just might.
Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show, live from the Chicago Sun-Times. Ben Joravsky, take us home.
All right, Zach Koutsky, we were talking about delegates, and you are running as a Warren delegate in the 5th Congressional District, northwest side of Chicago. So first, let's talk why Warren.
I just think, the senator from Massachusetts has just been the most consistent, in my mind, and effective in diagnosing the problem that faces working families, and not just as a Johnny-come-lately convert to, tearing off the premise that the economy's never been better, that the president's putting out there, but that this is systematic generational corruption that has skewed the economy towards those at the top. And she actually has plans and ideas on how to right that. And really, she has, I think, the best ability to diagnose that this is a power issue and who has the power. And for a long time, it's been aided and abetted, I would argue, by both parties to skew that more and more towards those already with a lot of power and means and away from middle class and working class families. And so I think she's just going to be the most effective advocate that we've got to start bending that back towards workers.
All right, we were talking about Rahm being in the studio on the Fran Spielman show. And we've talked a lot in the studio about how there's sort of two visions of where the Democratic Party should go and how the Democratic Party should be victorious. One is the Rahm view of the world. One is the Ben Joravsky view of the world. The Rahm view of the world is that people of the leftist persuasion should pretty much just shut up, fall in line, vote for whoever the Democrats put up, regardless of whether they agree with them on a wide range of issues, because what's really absolutely important is that we win over swing voters who might be otherwise likely to vote Republican. That's generally the Rahm point of view. He says that's what's worked when Barack Obama was elected, what worked when Bill Clinton was elected, what worked when the Dems took back the Congress in 2018. My point of view is that the Democratic Party cannot afford to ignore its base, cannot afford to take them for granted. And then when they move too far to the right or too far to the center on issues, they end up alienating their base. And so people come to the conclusion, what's the point of even voting? What's the point of even participating? They've sold me out before I even got here. And so what the Democratic Party should do is try to get as many people as it can in the traditional who would-be Democratic voters to vote and get more people to show up than ever before, sign up new voters, et cetera, and so forth. Rahm says that's completely unrealistic and it's a losing strategy. What's your opinion about that?
I think you have to do both. We lost, the election across 3 states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, by a combined 78,000 votes. Mm-hmm. And that was in large part because our base didn't show up, right? And you can argue on the tactics of the campaign that Clinton led, but I think you can also argue on the values and the vision that she put forward that wasn't motivating enough. Now, obviously, Trump was aided and abetted by Russia and a whole host of horrible characters, putting their thumb on the scale for him. But I think you need to make sure that the base has a reason to get out and vote for you and do so enthusiastically. But I also think you need to make sure that we're not throwing Lauren Underwood and Sean Casten under the bus and Betsy Dirksen-Longergan down in Central Illinois under the bus either, that you've got to show that there is a reason that people that might not be your base or even minimally inclined to vote for you can feel comfortable with you because you're giving, credence to their position and their approach to this. But I think first and foremost, it was a razor's edge election by which Trump won the Electoral College, certainly not the popular vote. And we need to make sure that that base alone has reason to get out for you. But I also think you need to make sure that you're not, and this is kind of where I frankly differ than with Bernie Sanders right now, is that you're not there to just, flip the table and say, we're all walking out. Some people still want to be at the table on that end. And so I think you've got to, persuasion and base motivation, and that's why it's a tough job to have. You've got to be a good politician to do both. And again, that's why I think Elizabeth Warren, in my mind, not the union's official position, but in my mind, is such a compelling candidate.
A very good, important distinction to make. Zach does not speak for the union. He speaks for Zach.
Yeah.
And Zach only. Do you think Bernie's gone too far and has alienated the Rahms of the world, so that there's no reconciliation possible?
I don't know if Bernie's alienated Rahm or Rahm's alienated Bernie. You could probably make an argument for both on that. Yeah. But no, I don't. I mean, I actually think, Sanders and Warren, and Biden, I think to another extent there, occupy some of that real fertile territory of people that we lost to Trump, right? That, the traditionalist base of the party is an unequivocal voice for workers. Not, the Bloomberg, not a socialist, bring in the boss ball cap. Like, dear God, could that be more tone deaf for the moment we end? Like, I've never in my position met a voter that's like, you know what would be better? If I hired my boss as president. Like, no. I think that we can occupy some of that territory that Trump stole from us. But I also think then too, you've got to have a vision of what it looks like once you remove the threat of Trump and where we go, in the 4 and hopefully next 8 years.
All right, and one more point on that. Every time we talk on the show about the Bloomberg hat, let me just remind folks, he's charging you for the hat. He's the 8th wealthiest man in the world, and he's charging you for the hat that basically says, give away your rights to the boss. I'm like, there's a sucker born every day in this country.
Yeah. I didn't think it was real when I saw it. I was like, no way. Like, and then, shit.
Our good friend Joanna sent it to me, and I sent her back. Is this a joke? This is not real, right?
Yeah.
And he was for real, man.
Yeah.
He must think people are stupid. Well, yeah. May it work for him in New York. All right, Zach. One more time, tell folks. Because Dennis has an update. Before we go to Dennis's update, tell folks if they want to get in touch with your union or if they want to learn more about cannabis workers' rights, give them the information.
Visit IL Cannabis Unions, that's plural, ilcannabisunions.com. And if you are an applicant in the next 2 weeks applying for a license, or if you're a worker in the industry now or want to be, go there. You can see all what we're about and the benefits of going union, both for your application process, but certainly for your day-to-day if you're a worker. So ilcannabisunions.com.
All right, very good. And D, you got an update for us?
Absolutely. 2 updates before we get out of here. First off, hey, no one ever said Trump supporters were professional football fans, okay? Garth Brooks, country music legend. Did you hear about this, Ben?
No,
country music legend Garth
Brooks. I know he's
Brooks.
a huge fan. You're a huge fan of him.
Oh, he's the Michael Jackson of country music, all right? He's a superstar. Well, no.
Well, Michael Jackson could dance.
Okay, well.
Just saying.
Country music legend Garth Brooks was performing in Detroit, Michigan, after the country singer posted a picture of himself in a Barry Sanders, Detroit Lions legend. Barry Sanders, my favorite football player. After the country singer posted a picture of himself in a Barry Sanders jersey on Instagram, some of those of the MAGA persuasion, by the way, that's a Bulls hat, not a MAGA hat that Ben's wearing. Some of the MAGA persuasion went a little crazy. At least one calling him, Garth Brooks, a big freaking liberal socialist because Sanders was on the back of his jersey.
You have got to be kidding.
No.
I swear, they should just take Twitter away from people. Because
occupant in the White House first.
Just unbelievable. They thought that he was talking about Senator Sanders?
They thought he was talking about Bernie Sanders, but he was wearing a Barry Sanders jersey. That commie.
I think they lose voting rights. Yeah, okay. That is unbelievable. I don't know what to say other than that. Come on, Trumpsters out there, MAGA hat wearers. I defend you from time to time, okay? But you're really making it hard for me to defend you. It's Barry Sanders, one of the greatest running backs in the history of the NFL.
People, if you aren't aware and you're a football fan, obviously you know Barry Sanders. But if not, if you're a millennial or a Gen
He's no Gale Sayers. All right, this will tell you that, young man.
Whoa, okay, now.
He's no Gale Sayers, the Kansas Comet. Pride and joy of the Chicago Bears, okay?
No sport.
Muddy Field, Wrigley Field. Here comes Gale Sayers, 6 touchdowns. But he's pretty good, but he's no Gale Sayers.
And our final story of the day here. It seems like it's today's top story here. Columbus Day Gate.
Nick Spazzato, my dear friend.
The following
lost your mind.
The following comes from the Chicago Sun-Times and the one and only Fran the Woman Spielman. Check out this week's Fran Spielman show. I know Ben's going to be listening to it like 5
I
times.
will listen to it. I listened to it when Ron was on the last time.
Mayor Lori Lightfoot said today that she has no plans to duplicate at the city level what her hand-picked school board just did, replacing Columbus Day with Indigenous Peoples Day. Here's the quote from Mayor Lightfoot. Quote, I do think we've got a lot more to make sure that we are aware and sensitive of the history, but I absolutely have no plans to support any elimination of Columbus Day at the city level.
Yeah, you know what the rest of the quote was? Habita. Because, that's called putting the mayor in a tough position, all right?
Lightfoot noted that for a number of years, the Chicago Public Schools have essentially celebrated both Columbus Day and Indigenous Peoples Day. She, quote, thought that made sense. The mayor was not asked, nor did she explain why. If she thought a shared holiday made sense, her hand-picked school board forged ahead with the change that has infuriated Italian-American aldermen and civic groups.
All right, I just say my suggestion is swap out Columbus Day for Nick Spazzato Day. I think everyone in Chicago could get behind that one and just celebrate my man Nick Spazzato, one of my favorite aldermen for the pride and joy of the Northwest Side.
So there you are, everybody. And hey, like we said here, make sure to check out those Benny J bonus interviews. If you go check out the live stream, if you missed anything, but you could download this week's shows. And yeah, that's it. Have a good weekend, everybody.
I want to thank Zach Koutsky. I want to thank Monica Gordon and Rummana Hussain. Great show. All of them did a wonderful job. But of course, got to thank this man right here, Zach Koutsky. You got to know this. The man, the myth, the legend.
Barry Sanders.
The pride and joy of Alton, Illinois. And back home in Alton, they call him White Lightning. Yes, sir. Give yourself a raise. Take it out of petty cash. See you next week, everybody.
Shout out to Jay Marie. No to Nick Spazzato Day. Hard pass. And remember, you can download previous Ben Joravsky shows and Benny J bonus interviews at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites and wherever else you download your favorite podcasts. Downloaders, we live stream this show Tuesdays through Fridays, 1 until 3 p.m. Central Time. Chicago Sun-Times, Chicago Reader websites, and the Chicago Sun-Times YouTube channel. Join that YouTube channel, and you will be able to join the live stream chat. Weigh in on Columbus Day Gate. Garth Brooks, the Bernie Sanders lover, apparently, and so much more. We'll see you Tuesday.
Take a chill pill, man.
That's correct.